Chapter 3306. Mei has never shown such a bashful expression in front of him before. Han Yi never thought that the wound was ugly, he just felt distressed that Mei had almost died from that injury. But he only mentioned it once, when Mei coldly said, "You dislike it for being ugly?" He was so scared that he didn't dare to say another word from then on. But when it comes to the miss, Mei actually played it down and agreed. "Boo-hoo, little shadow, you really have some unspeakable feelings for the miss." At that time, he shared a room with the miss, a lone woman, and spent the night. Even he didn't have such treatment. If there was a small handkerchief at this time, Han Yi would have already grabbed it in his hand, pulling and biting it. The other person, who is burning with jealousy, has a much more direct reaction than Han Yi. Di Mingju releases Xiao Bao, and in 2 or 3 steps, he walks in front of Mu Yan and pulls her into his arms. Almost gnashing his teeth, he says, "There's only Mei in your eyes, and not Ben Jun, Mu Yan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Jun Shangdaren's radiance is boundless, a beauty crowning the masses. How blind must I be to not see it? What beauty crowning the masses? He is the dignified Di Jun of the polar domain, how can he be described like this?" Then he thinks of the conversation he just heard outside. Di Mingju's complexion sinks a bit more. He grabs Mu Yan's waist, and firmly fastens her onto his body. Ben Jun's Yan Yan is really popular. Now, someone has come to propose marriage with betrothal gifts. Very obviously, Di Mingju, like her, also remembers that scene in the Yanwu continent. At that time, Mu Yan still didn't love Di Mingju, so she didn't hesitate to say ruthless words like, "It's none of your business," and "I only love Xiao Bao's biological father." Di Mingju thinks of Mu Yan's resoluteness that day, and how she couldn't forget Xiao Bao's biological father. His heart feels like it's being gnawed by millions of ants. Looking at Wang Wenhan and the others lying on the ground, his gaze is like it's dipped in poison. Wang Wenhan didn't have the strength to fight back against Di Mingju just now. Later, Han Yi directly crippled his lower body. At this time, he's in so much pain that he doesn't want to live, very weak and insane. Ever since he became a protector of the Clear Sky sect, he's already lost. However, all of this hatred, in the face of Di Mingju's ice-cold and merciless gaze, as if he was looking at an ant, completely transformed into extreme fear. The man in front of him was too powerful. It was so powerful that he felt a bone-chilling fear. Moreover, the pressure that lingered around him made him tremble uncontrollably. He couldn't even muster up the courage to resist. Guessing Di Mingju's thoughts, Han Yi slowly steps forward, the corners of his mouth hooking up into a shallow smile. He raised the saber in his hand. "No, you can't kill me, I'm the Clear Sky sect's protector, Puchi." Before Wang Wenhan could finish his words, the sword had already pierced through his heart. Immortal power surged, and with a loud bang, a large hole exploded in Wang Wenhan's chest. Looking at the lifeless body of his master, Luo Jinhua was so scared that he wet his pants. "I was wrong. We shouldn't have coveted Liberty City. Miss Polar Domain, we won't dare to come here anymore. Please spare us." He didn't know who these 3 people were or what their background was. They only knew that their strength was not something they could afford to provoke. At this moment, Luo Jinhua was filled with regret. He had thought that Liberty City was merely a new city. Chapter 3307. Even if that Jun Mayan had some background, she would at most be from the 6 great families or the 8 sects. If he could help his master marry her, there would definitely be many benefits in the future. However, he did not expect that he had provoked such a terrifying malefic star. I can help you and the leader of the Clear Sky sect. From now on, the Clear Sky sect and Liberty City will be brothers and friends, mutually beneficial." "Yes, yes. Miss June, my Clear Sky sect still has a lot of the materials you are looking for. In order to survive, Luo Jin's Chinese was incoherent, and he pulled out all the life-saving treasures he could think of. However, what greets him is still Han Ye's neat and tidy sword to his chest. You insulted the future mistress of my polar domain, and you still want to live. Dream on. He turned around and cupped his hands towards Mu Yan, but this guy's words are reasonable. Does Miss want Clear Sky sect's materials? I can snatch it with Little Shadow, or I can ask the Clear Sky sect to submit to Liberty City. Previously, in the Yenmu continent and the Shuzhen continent, because of the restrictions of the heavenly law, they couldn't casually take action. On several occasions, he had to rely on the young miss and the young master's help to escape. Things were different on the floating island. This place was very close to the immortal cultivation continent. The air was filled with immortal energy, and it was a relatively special place where the heavenly Tao laws were easily overlooked. Apart from Jun Shang, whose strength was too strong, a casual move would cause turbulence. People like them would have a lot of loopholes to exploit. Now he could finally hold his head high in front of the young miss. Mayan smiles, there's no need to destroy them or pledge allegiance. It's fine to knock them down a bit and fish out some treasures. Due to the special identities of Xiao Qi, Wei Mian, and the others, she did not want Liberty City to be too eye-catching. But to knock on the Clear Sky sect. Killing the chicken to warn the monkeys, so that the major forces around Greenwave City would not dare to mess with Liberty City easily in the future. Naturally, it would be the best outcome. Han Yi nods again and again, glancing at Di Mingju. Seeing that he doesn't object, he immediately grabs Ying Mei and excitedly leaves. Unexpectedly, Mu Yan grabs Ying Mei's hand and says with a smile that isn't a smile, Ying Mei and I haven't reminisced enough. You go alone. Han Yi is struck dumb all of a sudden. It was precisely because he wanted to be alone with Ying Mei that he volunteered. How could Miss June forcibly occupy Little Shadow? Di Mingju looks at the way Mu Yan is firmly holding Ying Mei's hand, and feels that it's an eyesore. She was about to step forward and pull her restless fiancé back to her side. Suddenly, he turned around to take a look. However, all he saw was an empty doorway. There was no one there. Di Mingju slightly narrows his eyes, thoroughly releasing his divine sense. In the next moment, on a distant hill, a tall, snow-white figure appeared in his mind. Amidst the green of the mountains and the white silk sleeves, there was also a glaring blood red. It was that person outside the shattered rock hill. The Li Weiran that Mu Yan mentioned. Who was this person? Di Mingju's heart skips a beat, and his figure flashes as he disappears from where he stood. However, when he arrived at the top of the hill, the figure of the man in white had completely disappeared. There wasn't even the slightest bit of aura left. Di Mingju's sword-like eyebrows tightly knit together, his eyes are ice-cold and his gaze is as sharp as a knife. Di Mingju, what's wrong? Mayan and Ying Mei Han Yi have already arrived at his side at some point. Di Mingju looks at Mayan, his eyes like lightning. The Li Weiran you mentioned before, is he also in Liberty City? Chapter 3308. Speaking of Li Weiran, Mu Yan inexplicably feels a little guilty. That's not right. Why would she feel guilty? This person's cultivation was higher than hers, and he was more cunning than her. She couldn't beat him or chase him away. What else could she do? Moreover, this person had saved Xiaobao's life and clearly stated his conditions. She had no other choice but to accept. Mu Yan recounted Li Weiran's actions over the past few days. Han Yi frowns. Jun Shang, this subordinate has never heard of such a person in any sect in the Shuzhen continent. Ying Mei, this subordinate will send the order back and let the people of the Xian department investigate this. Di Mingju doesn't speak, but frowns. he saved Xiaobao. Did he want something from the Tianguang ruins? Could these words be trusted? Just as he was thinking, someone suddenly hugged his thigh. Di Mingju looks down to see a delicate and pretty little face looking up at him, revealing a nervous expression. Xiaobao only has one father. Xiaobao doesn't want anyone else to be his father. The corner of Di Mingju's mouth twitches. He bent down and picked her up, gritting his teeth as he said, "Dream on." No matter who this Li Weiran was, he actually dared to say that he wanted to replace her as Xiaobao's father and Mayan's husband. Next time, I won't let him escape. Little Treasure nodded heavily. Li Weiran is shameless. Mother belongs to Xiaobao and Daddy. It's not his. Di Mingju lowers his head and glances at him. Your Nyingqin can only be mine. Xiaobao puffed up his cheeks and glared at the man hugging him. Mother, mine. Just a moment ago, the father and son were extremely close and united against a common enemy, but now, they've turned against each other at any moment. Mu Yan, ignoring the father and son, she took Ying Mei's hand and walked into the room. Seeing that Han Yi wants to follow, she waves her hand. You're not allowed to follow. Han Yi looks pitifully at Ying Mei. Who would have thought that Ying Mei would impatiently wave his hand at him? Aren't we going to the Clear Sky sect? Come back quickly and gather the materials. Don't let Miss wait for too long. Han Yi, QAQ. Little Shadow, you've changed. You don't love me anymore. In the room. With a blushing face, Ying Mei took off her clothes, allowing the strands of energy produced by Mu Yan to twine around her body. As the art essence yellow skill was activated, the scars on Ying Mei's body slowly disappeared. The black gas that was entangled in his meridians and dantian gradually dissipated. The process of withdrawing was obviously painful. Beads of sweat dripped from Ying Mei's forehead. But she just gritted her teeth and didn't make a sound. She didn't even frown. The treatment lasted for more than 2 hours before it ended. Mayan lets out a long breath, puts away the Tian Mo Chin, and walks over to Ying Mei, who is sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Every inch of the pale-faced woman's muscles was trembling slightly. But her expression was so cold and calm, as if she had long been accustomed to all kinds of suffering and torture. On her fair skin, a faint scar was faintly discernible. Even if it was an immortal with a high cultivation base, even if she used her Shen musician skills to treat them, it still couldn't completely cover up the suffering she had suffered. This was a woman who was stronger and more courageous than any other man. She was so strong that it made people feel sorry for her. She hoped that from now on, she wouldn't have to get hurt again. Mayan picked up the clothes on the side and draped them over her. Ying Mei suddenly opened her eyes. Seeing that it's Mayan, she immediately showed a weak but childlike smile. Miss, thank you. Ying Mei owes you another life. Chapter 3309. Mu Yan watches her put on her clothes, then sits down opposite her. She lets out a long sigh and says, Your injury is so serious, why didn't you tell me? If you had met me a day later, I'm afraid your cultivation wouldn't have been able to advance even an inch. Moreover, if it was treated earlier, it would only take 1 session to completely recover. But now, it will take at least a month of continuous treatment to completely remove the root of the disease. Ying Mei bit her lip, and after a long time, she said in a low, hoarse voice, In the battle of the fallen heavens, I didn't protect the little master, and almost consigned him to eternal damnation. So you used this method to punish yourself? Mu Yan was so angry that he almost laughed. Are you stupid or stupid? How sad would Xiaobao be if he knew? Ying Mei hurriedly shook her head. No, I just realized that I'm still too weak. I want to become stronger. I want to be qualified to continue being the leader of the Xian division. In the future, I want to be able to protect you, protect the Lord, and protect the little master. On the other hand, she was a weak girl with average talent and a late start. If she wanted to be stronger than others, she had to put in thousands of times more effort than others. A long period of recuperation was too much of a luxury for her. However, she couldn't let anyone know that she was a woman, and she couldn't let a doctor take her pulse to treat her. Mu Yen frowns. Are you still unwilling to restore your identity as a woman? Ingmei lowered her eyes and did not answer. His hands unconsciously clenched into fists. Mayan sighs. What about Han Yi? If he knew that you had suffered such a serious injury and that you were suffering every day, yet you didn't tell him, how sad would he be? Ingmei stared at the ground in a daze. After a long while, she murmured, he deserves better. What? Mu Yen suspected that she had misheard. Ingmei raised her head and smiled at her. Her smile was indescribably calm and cold. But Mu Yen felt an indescribable tug at her heart. It was so painful that she could hardly breathe. Han Yi, he deserves a better woman, and not someone like me, who is neither a man nor a woman, and whose hands are stained with blood. She couldn't rely on him wholeheartedly, couldn't bear his children, and couldn't even guarantee that they would be together forever. In the battle of the fallen heavens, Han Ye's heart-wrenching and lung-splitting cries seemed to still be ringing in his ears. As for her, she couldn't even promise to put down her weapons for him, to turn over a new leaf and become his virtuous wife. She was neither a man nor a woman. Just a monster. After saying this short sentence, Ingmei gets up and kneels down on one knee towards Mayan. He heavily kowtows, then turns around and leaves. In any case, she had already sworn to be loyal to Jun Shang for the rest of her life, to protect Jun Shang and Mississippi. In any case, from the moment she chose to disguise as a man and became the leader of the Xian division. She no longer longed for a peaceful, loving, and ordinary life. She had thought it through so thoroughly, but when she turned around, sparkling tears still streaked down her cheeks. Mayan stares blankly at the lit candle in the room, her expression absent-minded. The sound that came into her ears went in from one ear and out from the other. He didn't hear what was said at all. Finally, the person who spoke couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed her chin and forced them to look at each other. Jun Mayan, don't push your luck. Ben Jun has already agreed to let you treat Ingmei for 4 hours. Now that the treatment is over, why are you still so absent-minded? Could it be that my position in your heart is really inferior to Ingmei? Mu Yen comes back to her senses and sees the man's gloomy and handsome face. She can't help but burst out laughing. Chapter 33:10. After laughing, Mu Yen felt a little sad and distressed, as well as the helplessness of hating iron for not becoming steel. She hugs Di Mingju's waist and presses her face against his chest. She repeats what Ingmei just said to him. Who knew that after Jun Shang heard this, he snorted coldly and said disdainfully, groundless trouble, baffling. Puchi. Mu Yen couldn't help but laugh out loud. For someone like Di Mingju, who has had a venerated status since childhood, and whose self-confidence is off the charts, perhaps he simply doesn't know what the so-called inferiority complex is, right? In fact, Mu Yen herself is also such a person. Confidence, arrogance, determination. In the beginning, they would avoid and hesitate when they weren't sure of their feelings. Once she confirms that she likes Di Mingju, she never thought of retreating. Even if this person is the emperor of the polar domain, and she herself was just a mortal of the Yanwu continent, with a child with an unknown biological father at her side. She feels that she isn't worthy of Di Mingju, but she has never thought of retreating. If he wasn't worthy of her, he would work hard to make himself worthy of her. If there was a gap and contradiction, then he would think of a way to melt it down bit by bit. Mayan couldn't help but reach out and press down on Di Mingju's head, forcing him to bend down slightly. Only then does she intimately whisper in his ear, Mei still doesn't understand. In this world, in the vast sea of people, to be able to find someone who is mutually in love with you, and also to have the opportunity to stay with you for a long time is not an easy thing. The corner of Di Mingju's mouth faintly rises, his eyes flashing, but he lets out a light snort from his mouth. Are you asking for mercy from Ben Jun? How is this begging for mercy? I'm clearly confessing to you. Mu Yen said slowly, Yen Yu, how lucky am I to be able to meet you in the three realms, fall in love with you, and not let go of your hand. Di Mingju's expression stiffens, a blush slowly rising on his cheeks. Looking at the woman in front of him, his eyes were so gentle that it seemed as if they could drip water. Mayan, I wonder if Jun Shang is satisfied with such a confession. Di Mingju embraces the person in his arms. He turns his head and snorts softly. In short, in the future, besides treatment, you're not allowed to put your energy on other people. Mayan couldn't help but laugh again. Di Mingju, are you the reincarnation of a vinegar spirit? Mei is a woman, and she's your subordinate. Di Mingju, what's wrong with women? Didn't you hear from Bai Xia that the women in their world are called lesbians? Women were not safe either. Mu Yan laughed for a while, then put the matter down and talked about her natal sword. If she remembers correctly, Di Mingju also seems to be an expert in refining tools. However, the result was disappointing. Di Mingju's face is also dark, extremely vexed, not on the floating island. Here, divine power is harder to control than in the cultivation continent. It's not dangerous, but those fragile natural treasures and her fragile life sword would obviously be destroyed. Mu Yen sighed, feeling very disappointed. It seems that I can only go to the Holy Sky Alliance to find a top refiner. The thought of letting someone else have intimate contact with Mayan's natal long sword. Di Mingju's complexion is somewhat unsightly. Why not wait until the Shushan continent to refine the natal sword? Mu Yen, she really wants to. She had to ask the little ancestor in her space if she agreed. Unfortunately, she couldn't leave the floating island for the time being. 7 brilliants, I don't care. The next time I see Luo Yunshao, that pretty boy, if you cannot forge 7 natal swords, this venerable will not let you off. Mu Yen, 7 little brilliants, you still say that it has nothing to do with my little martial uncle. What kind of love-hate drama is this? Chapter 33:11. Qi Huang, who was in the space, flew into a rage once again. Mayan doesn't pay attention to him anymore. Instead, she grabs Di Mingju's hand, her fingertips gently tracing the hollow of his palm. She looks at him with curved brows. This time, can you stay on the floating island a little longer? Di Mingju's mind swayed. Before he could speak, he heard a sweet voice continue to ring in his ears. We haven't gone out to play together for a long time. Why don't we go to the Sacred Heaven Alliance together? Di Mingju's breathing quickened, just the two of us. Mu Yan was stumped for a moment. She lowered her head guiltily. Oh, we can't delay the treatment of the shadow demon. And Xiao Bao. Humph. He knew it. There would always be a bunch of eyesores everywhere. Di Mingju gritted his teeth. Sure enough, it's better to get married early to have a world of two. Shushan continent, the border of the netherworld. Mu Luyun looked coldly at the man in the shadows in front of him, his expression unfriendly. Master has called you many times, why haven't you replied? The person in front of him moved, slowly revealing a tall figure. His clothes were as white as snow, even brighter than the moonlight. And the red silk covering his eyes was more dazzling than blood. This person was Li Wei Ran, who disappeared from the floating island. Hearing Mu Luyun's rebuke, Li Wei Ran hooked his lips and said carelessly, That's your master, not mine. Let him call. Whether or not I want to respond depends on my mood. Mu Liuyun's expression suddenly darkened, his eyes flashing with anger. Li Weiran, don't you want to take revenge on the polar domain? Don't you want Di Mingju to die without a burial? Li Weiran restrained the smile on his lips. His voice was low as he said word by word, of course I do, but what does this have to do with you? Mu Liyun sneered, do you think you alone can kill Di Mingju and destroy the polar domain? Only by cooperating with us will you have a chance of success. Li Weiran, don't be too arrogant. Do you still remember how miserable your fate was when you schemed against Di Mingju? The atmosphere fell into a strange deathly silence. Li Weiran lowered his head slightly, not saying a word. Just as Mu Liyun was about to mock him again, he suddenly laughed in a low voice. Priest Liyun, why are you so angry? I didn't say I wouldn't cooperate with you. Didn't I come here today to tell you a piece of good news? Not only did Mu Liyun not feel gratified by Li Weiran's sudden change in attitude, he was even more wary of this person. But at this moment, he is still needed to deal with Di Mingju. Mu Liyun composed himself. What good news? Di Mingju is currently on the floating island. What? Mu Liyun was shocked. He went to the floating island. How dare he go to the floating island? Is that true? Li Weiran smirked. I've seen him twice with my own eyes. Do you think it's true? The floating island is where the laws of the heavenly Tao are most lacking. It is also where the curse can unleash its power without restraint. If he's really on the floating island, isn't this a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Mu Liyun revealed an excited expression. He could not help but pace back and forth on the spot. Do you know why Di Mingju suddenly went to the floating island? Li Weiran smiled but did not answer. Mu Liyun pretended that he did not know. He muttered to himself, this won't do. I must immediately report this to his lord. Li Weiran, you have never truly shown your face in front of the people of the polar domain. You're also good at controlling curses. When the time comes, the task of giving Di Mingju the final blow will be left to you. Chapter 33:12. Li Weiran obediently nods. Mu Liyun vigilantly and disgustedly looks at him, then turns around and disappears. Under the moonlight, only a tall figure in white stands alone in the night. After a long time, he takes out a jade box and gently opens it. A beautiful crystal-clear flower appears in front of him. Li Weiran stretched out his slender jade-like fingers and gently stroked the petals. He murmured in a low voice, the humiliation and pain that I have endured, everything that was taken from me. Today, I will take it back from you all one by one. Di Mingju, are you ready? Suddenly, his waist shines with a hurried light. Li Weiran glances at it, the corners of his mouth curling up. He carefully puts away the dark cloud spirit flower, then takes out a small bronze mirror. Because there is no longer the space barrier. Yu Yanran's anxious face appears in the mirror. Weiran, what's going on? I have already sent out 30 messages, why didn't you reply to any of them? Li Weiran carelessly says, I'm sorry, sister, I didn't notice before. Yu Yanran feels his perfunctory attitude and her face darkens. Are you in the Shushan continent now? Hurry up and come back. Linglong Island. As soon as Li Weiran enters Fian Palace, he is met with Huang Shouchuan's hateful gaze. He casually smiles and walks in front of Yu Yanran, revealing a well-behaved smile. Sister, I'm back. Yu Yanran, Weiran, where have you been these past few days? Why didn't you reply to my messages? Li Weiran lightly says, didn't I tell you? I was busy and didn't see. I think you've grown wings and are no longer willing to listen to Mrs. orders. Huang Shouchuan can't bear it anymore. Li Weiran, didn't I tell you to kill Mayan and bring her head and the Tian Mo Qin? So much time has passed, what have you been doing? Hearing the words, kill Mayan, Li Weiran's eyes darken. A cold murderous intent flashes in his eyes. But on the surface, he smiles, didn't I not find the opportunity? Why is Deputy Island Master Huang so angry? Humph, did you not find the opportunity, or are you simply reluctant to kill Mayan? Huang Shouchuan sneered, don't tell me you've already been captivated by that Shin musician vixen. Yu Yanran's expression suddenly changed as she looked up at Li Weiran. Weiran, is what Big Brother Huang said true? You really didn't reply to my message because of that evil Shin musician. Her voice was unconsciously raised, sharp and high-pitched. Li Weiran smiled perfunctorily, how could that be? Didn't I tell you? I didn't reply because I was busy. Fine, since you don't like it. Then go kill that Shin musician remnant for me right now. Yu Yanran's tone was hurried and fierce. Her eyes were bloodshot as she glared at Li Weiran. The smile on Li Weiran's face slowly disappeared and he said calmly, Sister, don't throw a tantrum like a child. Tell me, why did you call me back? You've really been seduced by that vixen. Who knew that the more Yu Yanran spoke, the more agitated she became. Her body trembled slightly and her expression was close to insanity. Why do you all care about Mayan? What's so good about her? She's obviously fickle and shameless, but you only see her and not me. Fine, you won't kill her, right? I'll personally curse her to death. Chapter 33:13. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Yu Yanran raises her hand, and a black light gathers in her palm. Her expression is malevolent and twisted, and her eyes are filled with a crazed murderous intent. However, before the black light can completely condense, Yu Yanran's wrist is tightly gripped. Li Weiran is already standing in front of her. The red veil slowly falls from her face, revealing a pair of ice-cold blue eyes. Sister, don't expose each other and leave everyone some face, isn't that good? Don't blame me for not reminding you. If anyone dares to hurt Mayan, I will take their life. Even if it's sister, it's the same. As soon as she says that, countless black threads twine around Yu Yanran's hand, swallowing the black light in her palm. Yu Yanran lets out a painful groan, and falls to the ground with a thump. Miss! Huang Shouchuan nervously rushes over to help Yu Yanran up, his eyes full of hatred as he glares at the demonic man in front of him. Li Weiran, what are you doing? Miss is your savior, are you going to bite the hand that feeds you? Oh, is that so? Then I'm sorry. Li Weiran claps his hands, smiling without sincerity. My memory isn't very good, I forgot that sister had saved me before. Sister won't blame me, right? That pair of ice blue eyes, the same as the man she yearns for day and night, looks over. Yu Yanran doesn't feel her heart palpitate, only full of fear. But after the fear, there's even deeper jealousy, hatred, and unwillingness. June Mayan. June Mayan again. It's not enough that she stole Di Mingju, now she also wants to seduce Li Weiran. Based on what? That indiscreet, fickle woman, in what way can she compare to herself? Yu Yanran's chest heaves up and down violently. Her face is pale, and her lips are bitten so hard that they're almost bleeding. Tears trickle down from her eyes. Huang Shouchuan looks at her painful appearance, only feeling a pain in his heart. He grits his teeth and looks up at Li Weiran. Do you know why Miss called you back? Li Weiran tilted his head. Aren't I all ears? Huang Shouchuan clenches his teeth and suddenly throws out a jade slip. This is the news that Yu Jing brought back from the Yanwu continent. Take a good look at it yourself, okay? If you really have an interest in that Shin musician survivor and want to snatch him from the hands of the Emperor, this may be your only chance. Li Weiran raised his eyebrows in surprise. He pinched the jade scroll and sent his divine sense into it. Upon closer inspection, his pupils suddenly shrank, and the hand holding the jade slip trembled slightly. Then, thin wrinkles spread from the tip of his eyebrows and the corner of his eyes to his entire handsome face. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. This is interesting news. Huang Shouchuan held Yu Yanran's hand and whispered in her ear, "Miss, don't be impatient. Have you forgotten our true purpose?" Only then did Yu Yanran wake up from her anger and jealousy. Yes. As long as Di Mingju believes that Li Weiran is Xiaobao's biological father, and that Mayan and Li Weiran have an affair, how could the emperor allow this adulterous couple to continue living? When Li Weiran laid his hands on her just now, Yu Yanran had already hardened her heart to eliminate this disobedient and dangerous person. Otherwise, if the emperor discovers that she has a relationship with the curse in the future, how could she become the mistress of the polar domain? Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 33:14. Yu Yanran takes a deep breath and looks up at Li Weiran, who is smiling like a child who has found his favorite prey. She says in a low voice, "Weiran, you know what to do next, right? As long as you make Di Jun believe that you are Jun Mayan's first man, the biological father of her son, from then on, Di Jun will inevitably abandon Jun Mayan like a pair of worn-out shoes, and you can get what you want." Li Weiran's slender fingers hold the jade slip, bringing it to his thin lips and kissing it. His smile is bright and joyful, indeed. "I didn't think that big sister would bring me such good news." "Then you should immediately go to the floating island." "No." Li Weiran interrupts Yu Yanran's urgent words, his blue eyes heavy as if he is trying to suppress a storm. "Since I'm going to do it, it must be perfect. I still need time to make some preparations. Di Mingju, this time, I will set up a real inescapable net. I will make you fall into a dead end, beyond redemption. On the floating island, 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sections. The Sacred Heaven Alliance in Mount Lingmiao and the Ning family in Maomu City are extremely special existences. Because these two are the only ones who don't listen to the Lan Empire. If the Ning family is said to be unrivaled in the floating island, then, the Sacred Heaven Alliance is said to be because they have a top godly refiner. So much so that the entire alliance has a unique position. As everyone knows, the floating island can exist. It was because the amazing summoner Lan Xiaozi had used his perfect body as a guide to refine a heaven-shaking sacred object called the Heavenly Halberd, which pierced a hole in the sky. The rubble of the Shushan continent fell and finally merged with the heaven-piercing halberd, forming the floating island of today. In other words, the floating island is not just an island, but a continent. It is also a huge magic weapon. A heavenly magic weapon that has merged with a heavenly holy artifact. And what supports the operation of this magic weapon is the special tool spirit that Lan Xiaozi summoned that day. However, even if it is a heavenly holy artifact, if it is used day after day, and without a master to inject immortal power and divine power to restore it, one day it will run out of energy and become a pile of scrap metal. At that time, the floating island will no longer have the foundation to support it to float between the Shushan continent and the Shuzhen continent. In the end, they all turned into rubble and fell apart. However, the 2 previous owners of the heaven-reaching halberd, Lan Xiaozi and his son, had passed away long ago. From then on, there was no one who was qualified to wield the heaven-reaching halberd. Without a master, the heaven-piercing halberd would only be consumed, without any replenishment. It was only a matter of time before it fell apart. Helpless, the major forces on the floating island racked their brains to come up with a remedy. The first was to have the Lan imperial family be responsible for forcefully injecting soul force into the heaven-connecting halberd every year to help it maintain its energy. The second was to find a top blacksmith to repair the damaged parts of the heaven-reaching halberd every year. On the floating island, only the Sacred Heaven Alliance, which was best at refining weapons, could repair the heaven-reaching halberd, such a sacred item. It was also because of this special function that even though there were not many true peak experts in the Sacred Heaven Alliance, even if they were unwilling to submit to the Lan family empire, they still had a supreme status. The repair of a 9th-level spiritual artifact only requires 100 crystals. The quota is limited, first come, first served. Let's take a look at the newly forged divine artifact, the Meteoric Fire Saber. Most suitable for fire-type soul cultivators, the results are guaranteed to be satisfactory. Chapter 33:15. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with exciting reading. Silver Light Armor, for large summoned beasts, able to enlarge or shrink with the summoned beast, a necessary treasure armor to protect and train your summoned beast. Originally priced at 9,999 crystals, now only 999 crystals. Don't miss this opportunity. Mount Spirit Wonder had a unique shape, surrounded by towering mountains, with a huge basin at the center. At the center of the basin was a large cluster of buildings, which was the base of the Holy Heavens Alliance. Surrounding the Holy Heavens Alliance were dozens of towns and sects of various sizes. These towns and cities were bustling with people coming and going every day. Most of the items traded there were Dharma treasures. Hearing the shouts around her, Yubilan shrunk her shoulders slightly, her expression hesitant and nervous. She wanted to raise her head and shout many times, but her voice was stuck in her throat. Compared to the treasures sold by those people, the best of the items on her stall was only a grade 8 spirit artifact. It was really not presentable. Even if she threw away her pride and shouted, no one would come over to take a look, right? But her mother was sick. If she still could not do business today, thinking of this, Yubilan's eyes reddened slightly, and she was about to stand up and try again. Suddenly, a slender and powerful hand with well-proportioned joints grabbed a white jade hairpin on her stall. Yubilan instinctively looked up. Then, she sucked in a breath of cold air. Her mouth was slightly agape as she stared blankly in front of her. Her mind was blank, and she even forgot to breathe. How could there be such a handsome man in the world? No, how could the word handsome describe him? Sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and dashing elegance all seemed like a frivolous stain on him. He was like a high and mighty god, standing there coldly and indifferently, already making one yearn to worship and submit to him. How many crystals? The cold voice had a low and husky magnetism, but it was so beautiful that even the bottom of one's heart would tremble. Yubilan seemed to be completely dumbfounded, not knowing what the person in front of her was saying. She only knew that the sexy thin lips opened and closed slightly, causing her ears to turn completely red, and her heart to pound non-stop. Until the person in front of her threw down a black crystal impatiently, directly taking the jade hairpin and turning to leave. Yubilan turned to look at the ground in a daze. When she saw what had been thrown there, her pupils suddenly shrank, and her teeth almost bit through her tongue. This is obsidian crystal. Yubilan was almost scared out of her wits. She hurriedly picked up the obsidian crystal and shouted, "Customer, this customer, there are too many." This jade hairpin was merely an 8th-grade spirit weapon. How could it be worth so many crystal stones? Only 10 crystals will be enough. However, the man did not turn back to look at her or the obsidian crystal she handed over. He simply said, "It's fine. I'll give you the rest." Then, he turned around and left. This time, Yubilan's body couldn't help but tremble when the deep, magnetic voice rang in her ears. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. Seeing that the man was about to leave, Yu Bailand hurriedly raised her head and wanted to say something, but the figure took a step forward and was already dozens of meters away from her. If he didn't chase after him, this person would disappear like a shooting star in the sky, and he would never be able to see him again. Yu Bailand's heart instantly panicked, and she didn't know where her courage came from. She actually abandoned the stall behind her, lifting the hem of her dress. She hurriedly chased after him. Chapter 33:16. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. She sees that in front of that handsome, godlike man, a girl in white has appeared at some unknown time. The jade hairpin that she just bought from his stall is passively and gently placed on the girl's hair. Under the sun, the girl's smile is bright and beautiful, more bewitching than the most beautiful flower in spring. And the man, who was just as cold as ice in front of her, is now lowering his head to look at the girl in his arms. His brows are so gentle that it seems like they could scatter into starlight. Ruan Yanan presses the hand holding the obsidian crystal against her chest, an inexplicable sourness welling up in her heart. Soon after, she can't help but reveal a wry smile. It turns out that the jade hairpin was bought for the woman he loves. It turns out that such a cold and aloof person can also have a side that is as tender as water. But isn't all of this a matter of course? Only this kind of fairy-like beauty could be a match for each other. What is a country girl like her letting her imagination run wild in the end? Mayan takes the jade hairpin out of her hair and gently fiddles with it in her hands. Raising her head, she can't help but smile at the man in front of her. Why did you think of buying jewelry for me? Jun Shangdaran, you have never been so sensible before. Di Mingju coldly snorts, why not? It's clearly Ben Jun's gift, but you don't wear it. Mayan stares blankly. Aside from the void spirit ring, when did she receive Di Mingju's jewelry? Could it be that she forgot? But she really doesn't like wearing those jewelry. Even the ones that Xiao Bao specially bought for her, after wearing them for a while, she found them troublesome and put them away in the space. Hey, wait a minute. Speaking of the jewelry that Xiao Bao bought for her, she suddenly remembers something. She rummages through the space with her divine sense, and finally finds a pair of white jade earrings and a white jade bracelet. There are dragon and phoenix patterns engraved on them, and the knife technique is the same. Clearly, they are a set. These white jade earrings were given to her by Xiao Bao when she was in Yanwu continent. And this white jade bracelet was what this man forced her to wear when Jin Wangye proposed marriage. It was only later that Mayan found out that Xiao Bao and Di Mingju had bought her gifts, and they were actually a set. Recalling how flustered and exasperated Xiao Bao was when he mentioned Di Mingju, this Fletcher, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Now that he looked at it, the white jade phoenix tail hairpin in his hand was very similar to the earrings and bracelets in terms of quality and cutting skills. Mayan softly looks at Di Mingju, grabbing his hand and holding the white jade phoenix tail hairpin. She puts it on her head. Thank you, I like it very much. What do you like? I'll pick one for you, okay? The corners of Di Mingju's mouth quirks up, but he forcibly suppresses it. He coldly snorts, does Ben Jun lack these things? Mu Yan thought for a moment. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly realized that there was someone beside her. She couldn't help but turn her head to look. Seeing that Ruan Yanan was staring blankly at the two of them, he couldn't help but ask curiously, Miss, is there anything I can help you with? No, sorry. That white jade phoenix tail hairpin, it's not worth a piece of obsidian crystal, she spoke incoherently. Her hand that was holding out the obsidian crystal was trembling, and she almost dropped it on the ground. Mu Yan looks at the obsidian crystal in her hand, then looks at Di Mingju, muttering, Di Mingju, you used a piece of obsidian crystal to buy an 8th grade jade hairpin. On the floating island, spirit tools and low-level divine tools are worthless. And the obsidian crystal. That's a priceless commodity. One piece of obsidian crystal is equivalent to 10,000 high-grade crystals. Using 10,000 high-grade crystals to buy an 8th-grade spirit hairpin. Chapter 33:17. Deming-ju doesn't care and says, "Insignificant obsidian crystals, wait until we return to the polar domain. How much do you want? Ben-jun will let you play with them." But the problem was that they were on a floating island. The problem was that she was currently supporting a city and an army. She was extremely short of money. Mu Yen couldn't help but feel angry and amused. But more than that, it was a sweet feeling that came from the bottom of her heart. Seeing that Wan Yanan was about to anxiously hand over the obsidian crystal again. She chuckled. "My husband said that this white jade hairpin is worth a piece of obsidian crystal, so it's worth a piece of obsidian crystal. Miss, we troubled you to chase after us, but this obsidian crystal is already yours. There's no need to return it to us." But that jade hairpin is really only an 8th-grade spirit weapon. The little girl's eyes were filled with embarrassment. Moreover, I was the one who refined it. Its quality isn't even good. At best, it can only be considered ordinary. Mu Yen exclaimed, "Did you refine this jade hairpin?" Ruan Yanan thinks that Mu Yen dislikes the spirit hairpin that she refined. Sadness flashes through her eyes, and she stutters, I didn't refine it well. If Miss dislikes it, no, you refined it very well." Mu Yen revealed a bright smile. "Do you practice swordsmanship?" Only now does Ruan Yanan truly see Mu Yan's appearance. Beautiful like the autumn moon, bright like the spring flowers. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her skin was as fair as fine jade under the sunlight. Her peach blossom eyes were like ripples that could captivate one's soul. Ruan Yanan's heart pounded even harder. He's almost more nervous than when he first came into contact with Deming-ju. Especially when she met that pair of expectant eyes, she, who was clearly feeling inferior, actually raised her voice and said, I can do it. I'm best at forging flying swords." On the crowded street. From time to time, there would be people who would stop to look back, not even realizing that they had bumped into the person in front of them. In front of an inconspicuous store, there was a crowd of people. Inside the shop, a young servant girl with her hair combed into 2 buns was looking at the person in front of her with eyes full of love. She asked in a low voice, "Young master, may I ask what you want to buy?" "The armors we sell in our shop are all the most gorgeous and have the best defense and acceleration effects. I can even make it according to your size and style." Good heavens! Did this child in front of him fall from the sky? How could there be such a cute little doll in the world that could melt one's heart? If he could bring it home and raise it, it would be great to kiss, pinch, and hug it every day. Ing Mei, who was following behind Xiaobao, frowned and stood in front of Xiaobao, coldly glancing at the maid. In an instant, the little servant girl's excitement seemed to have been doused with a bucket of cold water. She was so scared that she trembled. Ing Mei moved closer to Xiaobao and whispered, "Little master, there are too many people here. Should we go back to Jun Shang's side?" The more people there were, the more eyes there would be. The crux of the matter was that along the way, there were simply too many men and women who coveted Little Master. Even if Xiaobao's face is always cold, and his whole body exudes an unapproachable aura like Jun Shang's. But that little face was just too exquisite, too cute, and too adorable. So much so that along the way, there were people who wanted to come over and curry favor with him, and there were even people who pounced over and wanted to take Little Bao away. In the end, he was beaten half to death by Ing Mei. Of course, Ing Mei wouldn't take these small fries of the floating island seriously. But with Little Master's noble status, how could he be coveted and surrounded like this? On the contrary, Xiaobao had long since become accustomed to this kind of spectacle. Chapter 33:18. Especially when he and Mu Yan hold hands and walk together, the degree of sensation caused by that would directly double. Hearing Ying Mei's words, he just curls his lips like a little adult. Daddy doesn't want us to disturb him and Yangqin's world of two people. Saying that, he turns to several beautiful dresses and black men's clothing, hands behind his back, and indifferently says, I want all of these, wrap them up for me. The little maid stares blankly at Xiaobao, not reacting for a moment. The one speaking to her in such a calm and indifferent tone is a 5 or 6-year-old baby. Xiaobao sees that she hasn't moved for a long time and frowns. Remembering something, he fishes out a piece of obsidian crystal from the storage ring and directly throws it on the counter. Did you hear me clearly? Obsidian crystal. The little maid's eyes go straight. She no longer cares about her infatuated shock. Nodding repeatedly, she rushes to prepare the clothes. Soon, the dresses that Xiaobao pointed out are all prepared. The little maid takes the obsidian crystal with trembling hands and says shakily, these precious armors and clothes are not as valuable as mine. I have to go inside to get the rest of the crystals. Please wait here for a moment. Xiaobao is just about to say that there's no need to look. From the corner of his eyes, he sees that Ying Mei is staring blankly at a dark blue Qilin clothing embroidered with silver cloud patterns. The quality of this clothing can only be regarded as ordinary. But the style is unique and novel, making people's eyes light up. Xiaobao purses his lips and raises his voice, wrap this one up too, don't look for the rest of the crystals. Ying Mei comes back to her senses and looks at Xiaobao in surprise. Xiaobao's little face is taut, his hand still behind his back, and he says in all seriousness, if you want to bring a gift for Han Yigij, then bring it. Xiaobao won't laugh at you. Ying Mei's face suddenly turns red, and her voice rarely stutters. Who wants to bring a gift for him? Xiaobao blinks, you don't. Han Yigij is left alone in Xiaoyao City. If Sister Ying Mei doesn't bring a gift for him, he must be very sad, right? Ying Mei lowers her eyes and is silent for a long time, then she whispers, bye. As soon as they come out of the shop, they suddenly bump into someone. If it weren't for Ying Mei's sharp eyes and quick hands, Xiaobao, who was holding the storage ring to check the newly bought clothes inside, would have been knocked down. Seeing that this person was about to escape, Ying Mei grabbed his clothes and said coldly, apologize. What are you apologizing for? Scram. Get lost. As he spoke, he was about to kick Ying Mei away. However, before he could kick out, his wrist was grabbed by someone, and a cracking sound came from his wrist. Let go, let go. Bastard, do you know who I am? Ying Mei looked coldly at the man who was crying bitterly, his expression fierce. I don't care who you are. Since you offended my little master, you must apologize. Sensing the terrifying aura emanating from Ying Mei, the man was obviously afraid. His voice trembled as he said, I apologize, I apologize. Young master, I'm sorry, but I really didn't do it on purpose. It's my master who's acting up, and it's urgent. I need to get a doctor to save him. Little Bao said, Ying Mei, let him go. Only then did Ying Mei loosen her grip and stand behind Xiaobao. The man couldn't be bothered to argue with Ying Mei and Xiaobao, and hurriedly ran to an inn not far away. The inn was called Pure Grace Pavilion, and it looked extremely grand and imposing from the outside. Looking in through the window, the decorations inside were also exquisite and luxurious. It was very obvious that the people who could live here were either rich or respectable. At this time, the front door of the Pure Grace Pavilion was surrounded by people. Little Bao was a little curious, and he couldn't help but follow. Chapter 33:19. The Pure Grace Pavilion has always been quiet and elegant, with only the sound of musical instruments. Why is it so noisy today? TSK, you don't even know this. Currently, the most famous divine doctors on the floating island are all gathered in the Pure Swan Pavilion. Among them, there's even the renowned, wandering celestial doctor, Hikaizu, and the #1 divine doctor of the Lan imperial family, Wenjian. Ha! Why did so many divine doctors gather in my Sacred Heaven Alliance? Could it be? Is there a need to ask? Of course they are here to cure our Alliance Master Xiang Yunzhou's strange disease. I heard that if anyone can cure Alliance Master Xiang's disease, Alliance Master Xiang promised to personally refine a magic treasure for them. And there is no limit to the grade of this magic treasure. As long as there are enough materials and it can be refined on the floating island, Alliance Master Xiang is even willing to refine a divine king weapon. These words made the surrounding people suck in a breath of cold air, revealing an envious expression. Even doctors did not need powerful weapons. But with such a high-level magic treasure, they could order other cultivators to do anything for them. Even Xiao Bao, who was about to leave after watching the show, could not help but stop in his tracks. He remembered that his mother wanted to refine a natal sword. She came to the Sacred Heaven Alliance to find a powerful refiner. And as for doctors who could cure strange diseases, was there anyone in the world whose medical skills were better than his mother's? Thinking of this, Xiao Bao could not help but squeeze in. The crowd of onlookers was 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Originally, they would not allow anyone to push in. But when they saw such a cute little baby coming in, all their tempers turned into tenderness and care. Therefore, Xiao Bao smoothly squeezed into the innermost layer. The first floor of the Pure Grace Pavilion did not look like an inn at all. The lobby, which was originally for resting and eating, had been changed into a registration office. And this registration office was actually divided into 2 parts. One side was for doctors to register. It was empty, with only a notice pasted on a wooden shelf. On the other side, there was a long line, all of them looking anxious and excited. The man who almost bumped into Xiao Bao was among them. Make way, make way. I am a servant of the Situ family, here to seek treatment for my master. If anyone is willing to give up their position to us, I am willing to pay 1,000 top-grade crystals. 1,000 top-grade crystals just to move 1 seat back. How many people would refuse? Especially when the man shouted the 3 words Situ clan. The Situ clan was one of the 6 great clans of the floating island, 1 nation, 3 alliances, 6 clans, and 8 sections. Its high status and power were not something ordinary people could offend. Therefore, the man quickly came to the front and quickly said, "My master is the Situ family's patriarch, Situ Tinji. Today, I have come to beg Dr. Wenjian to help me. I hope fellow Daoist can help me register and notify him." The Holy Heaven Alliance disciple who was taking notes revealed a troubled expression. Dr. Wen said that he only came to the Holy Heaven Alliance to treat Alliance Master Xiang's illness, and is not prepared to treat other soul masters. My master has already fallen ill, and the medicine is ineffective. Previously, his illness was treated by Dr. Wen. If Dr. Wen doesn't treat him, what will happen to my master? The man was so anxious that he was about to cry. No matter how many crystal stones or treasures you have, please let Dr. Wen come out and treat my patriarch. As he spoke, there was a commotion at the back of the crowd. Very soon, a few people wearing the same clothes as the man walked in hurriedly with a soft sedan. Chapter 33:20. The crowd quickly opened up a path. Shu Mo, where's Physician Wen? You still haven't found him. Don't you know Master can't hold on much longer? The man called Shu Mo turned around, tears rolling down his eyes. They said Physician Wen is not accepting patients. Damn it. The man standing beside the palanquin punched a pillar at the side. He suddenly yelled, Wen Jian, get out here. You said you could cure Master's hidden illness, so we gave you the Situ family's largest mine. But you returned to the Lan family empire after treating him for a while. Master's illness was not cured, but worsened instead. If you don't treat Master's illness today, my Situ family will tear you to pieces. This person's cultivation was at least above the mountain opening realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that the spirit energy he gathered was world-shaking. Those with low cultivation in the hall covered their ears in fear and took several steps back. The Sacred Heaven Alliance's servant in charge of registration frowned. Originally, the Sacred Heaven Alliance allowed doctors to treat patients because the resources had already been gathered in the Sacred Heaven Alliance, so it would be a waste not to use them. That was why they allowed those who needed to go to the Pure Swan Pavilion to register for a doctor. Of course, the patients had to pay the high consultation fees themselves. Unexpectedly, it led to a conflict between the Situ family and Wen Jian. Wen Jian was an important doctor who was going to treat the Alliance Master. The Situ family was not to be offended. In this way, the matter could not be resolved peacefully. Just as he was hesitating whether to report it, he saw a figure slowly walking down from upstairs. The person wore a light purple robe. He was slightly plump and had a neatly trimmed goatee. As he walked down, he stroked his beard and glanced disdainfully at the person who had just shouted. He sneered, Shu Jian, even your master doesn't dare to speak to me like this. Who do you think you are? How dare you call me by my name and speak to me like this? Shu Jian looked at the person with eyes that were about to spit fire. But thinking of the unknown fate of the master in the palanquin, he gritted his teeth and knelt down. Physician Wen, I have no intention to offend you. Master's life is in danger now. If you don't treat him now, he might lose his life. Dr. Wen, please save my master's life. As he spoke, the door of the sedan was opened, revealing an unconscious man with a sallow complexion. At this moment, the man's figure was emaciated, and he definitely did not look good. Just by looking at his facial features, one could tell that he was a handsome and extraordinary man. The moment he saw this person, Ying Mei's eyes widened. He couldn't help but take a step forward and stare at the person in the sedan chair. Wen Jian stood on the steps and looked down at the kneeling Shu Jian and Shu Mo as well as the half-dead man in the palanquin. A cold smile appeared on his face. So what if he was the Situ clan's clan leader? In his eyes, it was just a dog's life. If she wanted him to live, he would live. If she wanted him to die, he would die. Wen Jian stroked his beard and said faintly, this old one has already said about Situ Patriarch's illness. We can only do our best and leave the rest to fate. His illness was already beyond cure, and if it weren't for me trying my best to prolong his life, he would have died long ago. Now that things had turned out this way, it was just following the will of the heavens. Who knew that not only was the Situ family not grateful, but they even slandered me and wanted to slander me? That's not the case at all. Shu Mo shouted anxiously. Chapter 33:21. That's not the case at all. Shu Mo shouted anxiously. Although the patriarch was sick back then, he was only unable to cultivate. How could he be unconscious like now, with his life slowly fading away? It's clearly you who swindled our Situ family's crystal stone mine, and now you want to harm my master's life. Wen Jian sneered, are you questioning this old man's medical skills? Fine. If you can find a doctor who can cure Situ Tinji's injuries, I will return the crystal stone mine to you. How about that? Shu Jian and Shu Emo trembled in anger. The crowd was discussing, thinking that Wen Jian was the best physician of Floating Island. Since he said he couldn't cure it, then it definitely couldn't be cured. Just as Shu Jian and Shu Emo were at a loss for words, and everyone was whispering to each other. A fairy-like little baby walked out of the crowd. He calmly walked towards the notice board on the left. Compared to the queue for treatment, the crowd here was crowded. The place for the doctor registration was empty, without a single person. Hence, Xiao Bao's sudden appearance was especially eye-catching. Everyone, including Wen Jian, could not help but look towards him. Xiao Bao walked up to the notice board, and with a light leap, he tore down the bounty notice board. Hey, little brother, what are you doing? That's not something you can play with. The people of Sacred Heaven Alliance suddenly came to their senses, and hurriedly rushed over, wanting to snatch the bounty list from Xiao Bao's hands. Unexpectedly, the little person casually stuffed it into his hands as soon as he landed, and said calmly, "Is tearing down this bounty list counted as signing up?" Sign up for what? Xiao Bao looked suspiciously at this Sacred Heaven Alliance disciple, as if looking at an idiot. Isn't this the place where the doctor registered to treat Alliance Master Xiang Yunzhou is? The Sacred Heaven Alliance disciple was confused, but still persuaded in a good temper. Yes. So this is not a place for you to play. Little master, please go back with your family. Xiao Bao's delicate little face was taut, and his crisp voice was emotionless. I want to sign up. Sign up. That disciple suspected he had heard wrongly. Little brother, do you know what signing up is for? Don't joke around. This is to find a doctor to treat Alliance Master Xiang's illness. If you continue to cause trouble, Uncle will be angry. Xiao Bao raised his long eyelashes and glanced at him with an indifferent expression. I'm not signing up for myself, but for my mother. My mother can cure your Alliance leader's illness. The disciples of the Sacred Heaven Alliance were stunned. The audience fell into a brief silence. Then, a burst of laughter broke out. Where did this kid come from? He's so young, yet he's so arrogant. He actually said that his mother can cure Alliance leader Xiang's illness. Even Dr. Wen and Dr. He wouldn't dare to boast about such a thing. Wen Jian snorted disdainfully and said coldly, a farce. Hurry up and chase these strange people out. The Pure Swan Pavilion is for the Alliance Master's doctors to treat, not for random people to cause trouble. If your Sacred Heaven Alliance can't even do this, I'm going to doubt your sincerity in seeking treatment. The expressions of the Sacred Heaven Alliance disciples changed. After hesitating for a while, they split into two groups. A group of people went to ask the Situ clan to leave. The other group carried Xiao Bao and sent him out of the hole. Seeing that someone wanted to touch Xiao Bao, Ingmei took a step forward with a dark expression. I'll see who dares to touch little master. Chapter 33-22. Ingmei did not notice that when she spoke, the unconscious Situ clan master opened his eyes absent-mindedly. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before closing again. The hall was in chaos. Shu Jian and Shu Mo roared, Wen Jian, you are so vicious. A beast like you dares to call yourself a physician. People of the Sacred Heaven Alliance, grow some heart. Otherwise, our clan masters today will be Alliance Chief Xiang's tomorrow. The surrounding atmosphere froze for a moment. Wen Jian's expression suddenly darkened. He narrowed his eyes and said sternly, does the Sacred Heaven Alliance plan to believe the Situ clan's nonsense and convict me? Very well. Since you do not believe me, I will not treat Alliance Chief Xiang's illness. Find someone else. Physician Wen, please do not be angry. You are the #1 physician of Floating Island. How can we not believe you? Right, right. Our Alliance Chief's illness still depends on you. Don't worry, we will get rid of these irrelevant people immediately. The Sacred Heaven Alliance disciples did not dare to delay any longer. They quickly sent people to surround the Situ clan and Xiao Bao's group. The man who had been amiable towards Xiao Bao now said with a stern expression, "Little young master, if you continue to be unreasonable, don't blame us for being impolite." Xiao Bao's expression was still indifferent. Hearing this, he looked up and said, "You say that I am unreasonable. Are you saying that my mother is not qualified to treat your Alliance chief?" The disciple said patiently, "We've invited almost all of the famous doctors on the Floating Island. Little young master, don't think that your mother has superb medical skills just because she casually treated a few people. Our Alliance chief's illness." Before he could finish his words, he saw that cold and beautiful baby walk a few steps in front of the unconscious Situ Tinji. Holding an elixir in her white and tender hand, she stuffed it into Situ Tinji's mouth without hesitation. "What are you doing?" "Clan Master." Shu Jian and Shu Mo were originally confronting the disciples of the Sacred Heaven Alliance. By the time they realized what Xiao Bao was doing, Situ Tinji had already swallowed the elixir. The two panicked and pounced over, wanting to push Xiao Bao away. However, not only did they fail to push the little doll away, they were also sent flying backwards. Unbeknownst to him, Mei was already standing guard in front of Xiao Bao, like a towering mountain, towering and unmoving. Shu Jian and Shu Mo exchanged glances and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. However, when they thought about the safety of their patriarch, they gritted their teeth and rushed forward regardless of the consequences. "Stop! Book sword, book ink." A low cry brought the two back to their senses. They all turned their heads and saw that the originally unconscious Situ Tinji had already opened his eyes and was sitting up straight. Although his complexion was still sallow and weak, his originally ashen lips were actually suffused with a normal red color. "Master, you're awake. Are you all right?" Shu Jian and Shu Mo cried and pounced over to support the man. They couldn't help but tear up. Situ Tinji did not have the strength to comfort them. Instead, he looked straight at Mei. The surging emotions in his eyes caused his body to tremble uncontrollably. And on Mei's usually indifferent face, there were also fluctuations of disbelief. Could the person in front of him really be the person he or she was thinking of? Situ Tinji finally calmed his mind and shifted his gaze from Mei to Xiao Bao. "Thank you for saving my life, little young master." Chapter 33-23. However, little Bao ignored him. Instead, he turned around and glanced at the Sacred Heaven Alliance disciple at the side. "This pill was refined by my mother. Her medical skills are even stronger than her pill refining abilities. Now, do you think my mother has the qualifications to remove this bounty list and treat your Alliance master?" The audience fell into a deathly silence. After a long while, the Sacred Heaven Alliance disciple who wanted to chase Xiao Bao away suddenly came back to his senses and said with a trembling voice, "May I ask young master's mother's name and where she is now? The Sacred Heaven Alliance is willing to welcome you personally to show our respect." On the stairs, Wen Jian's complacent smile froze on his face. Gradually, it turned into a vicious, cold, and vicious expression. At the foot of Mount Spirit Wonder, in front of a simple stone house. With a loud bang, the earthen kiln used for refining swelled up high, and then suddenly exploded. Scalding rubble and dirt flew everywhere. When it splashed onto his body, it was a terrifying blister. Ruan Yanin didn't care about her injuries at all. She quickly rushed over and pulled out a long sword from the rubble. However, the moment she saw the sword, she was so depressed that she wanted to cry. Sorry. Seeing Mayan and Di Mingju coming out of the room, Wang Yanan deeply buries her head, her voice almost crying, I'm too useless. Miss June, you gave my mother precious elixirs, but I can't even refine a sword. Mu Yan took the long sword. She didn't even need to probe it with her divine sense to know that it was a Tier 1 divine tool. Both its attributes and purity were quite good. It could be sold for a good price in the outside world. But the requirements for her life-bond sword were worlds apart. In fact, Mu Yan never thought that Wang Yanan could refine a natal sword for her. She just vaguely felt that there was an inexplicable and peculiar aura on the magic treasure that Wang Yanan refined. She had sensed this kind of aura from the Bixia sword, from the Chaotic Tower, and even from the Tian Mo Qin. However, compared to the vast and majestic breadth of the Tian Mo Qin, the evil warding spell in the Chaotic Tower were endless. Wang Yanan's magic treasure was so weak that it was almost undetectable. Mu Yan remembers the Shin musician refining skill that she can't activate, so she wants to witness the process of Wang Yanan refining a magic weapon with her own eyes. But to her disappointment, in the end, the Shin musician's refining skills were not stimulated. Looking at the young lady, she was so upset that she almost cried. Mu Yan reached out and rubbed her head, softly saying, "It's all right, your magic weapon was refined very well. It was my request that was too harsh. Even in the Sacred Heaven Alliance, I'm afraid not many people can successfully refine the flying sword that I want to refine." Feeling the gentle caress on his head, listening to the heavenly whisper, smelling the natural fragrance of the girl's body. Wang Yanan's face was so red that it could drip water. She murmured in a low voice, but your pill cured my mother's illness, but I can't help you with anything. I'm really sorry. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. No matter what, I will definitely repay your kindness. Hearing this, Mu Yan's heart stirred. Why would a magic treasure refined by Wang Yanan have such a weak and unique aura? She still hasn't studied this point clearly. She pondered for a moment, then said in a low voice, "I really have some interest in the magic treasure you refined. I am the city lord of Xiaoyao City. If you are willing, why don't you come back with me to Xiaoyao City? I promise that I will definitely provide you with enough refining materials to help you grow. I will also look after your mother's illness." Chapter 33-24. I do. Wang Yanan's excited voice is floating. Grabbing Mayan's hand, she says loudly, "Miss June, no, City Lord, please take me away, I'm willing to follow you for a lifetime." As soon as Di Mingju arrives, he sees this scene, and his face immediately darkens. Towards his fiancée, no matter where she went, she would attract a bunch of lascivious men to surround her. Jun Shangdaran expresses that the sea of jealousy in his heart is about to drown the 3 realms and the 6 paths. Damn it, it's not enough to guard against men, but also against women. Di Mingju makes a grabbing motion in the air, pulling Mayan, who is currently comforting Wang Yanan, to his side. "Yan, can't you be a little more obedient? Don't you want to spread your charm everywhere?" Mayan blinks, looking at the unfriendly man, her face full of doubt. How was she restless? Just as he was about to speak, a familiar voice came from afar. "Mother." Then, the little figure jumped into her arms, hugged her neck, and rubbed against her affectionately. "Mother, Xiaobao misses you so much." Her little face was cold, but she spoke in a crisp and cute voice. Her soft cheeks were rubbing against his face. Mu Yan feels like her whole heart is about to melt. Although they hadn't seen each other for only half a day, seeing the baby in her arms, she couldn't help but reveal a bright smile. She kissed his face and said, "Nyangqin also missed Xiaobao." Xiaobao's face is rosy from concocting pills. He then turns his head to look at Di Mingju. He reaches out and throws himself into his arms, rubbing against him. He says in a low voice, "Xiaobao also misses daddy." Di Mingju strokes his head, his expression indifferent as he looks at the people behind Xiaobao. The disciple from the Sacred Heaven Alliance who came with little Bao was called Heng. Along the way, he had thought about this child's mother countless times. She was a reclusive famous doctor who had a son in her old age. However, when she saw the handsome man and beautiful woman standing side by side under the sun, she suddenly lost her breath. Of these two people, the man was unrivaled handsome in the world, and the woman was devastatingly beautiful. Even though he was just standing there, he was already in existence that people couldn't take their eyes off of. Now that they were standing side by side, it was a huge sensory impact. Heng had even forgotten what his name was and what he was here for. It wasn't until Situ Tinji let out a heart-wrenching cough that Zhang Heng snapped out of his daze. His trembling eyes meet Mu Yan's face, and he moves them away in a panic. May I ask if you're the doctor that the little Gongzi mentioned who opened the bounty list?" "Open the bounty list?" Mu Yan is confused. Xiao Bao grabs Mu Yan's hand, makes her squat down, and whispers something in her ear. The Alliance Master of the Sacred Heaven Alliance, the strongest artificer of the floating island, needed to be treated. Mu Yan's eyes suddenly lit up. She held Xiao Bao's face and kissed him heavily on the forehead. "Xiao Bao, you really are Nyangqin's lucky one." Xiao Bao's cheeks were rosy, and the corners of her pink lips were curled up. She was indescribably adorable. Only then did Mu Yan look at Heng. "Yes, I'm willing to try and treat Chief Xiang. I don't know. I don't know which family Madam's master is, Madam." Mu Yan looks at Di Mingju. Is this the first time someone calls her Madam? Curling the corners of her lips, Mu Yan says, "A small mountain sect, not worth mentioning. May I know what illness Chief Xiang is suffering from?" Heng respectfully says, "For the specific situation, please come to the graceful pavilion, Madam." In fact, although the Sacred Heaven Alliance has invited so many doctors, not everyone is qualified to treat Xiang Yunzhou. Chapter 33-25. The so-called medical exchange meeting in the Pure Grace Pavilion was actually an examination of each doctor. In the end, the Sacred Heaven Alliance would even set up a test to choose the doctor who could treat Xiang Yunzhou. Mu Yan thought about it and was about to agree, when suddenly, a shrill scream came from not far away. "Patriarch! Patriarch! Don't scare us!" Xu Jian and Xu Mo stumbled up from behind. "Little Gongzi, do you still have more medicine? Can you give one to our patriarch? Miss, are you really a doctor? I beg you, please save our family head." Mu Yan was startled, somewhat confused about the current situation. Who were the ones who were talking and sick? Weren't they from the Sacred Heaven Alliance? Mississippi. At this moment, Ying Mei suddenly knelt on one knee and said hoarsely, "Ying Mei wants to ask you to treat someone." Ruan Yanan temporarily prepared a room as Mu Yan's consultation room. Zhang Heng sent the other disciples of the Sacred Heaven Alliance away to report, but he stayed. In fact, although Xiao Bao used an elixir to wake Situ Tinji up, most people in the Sacred Heaven Alliance were still skeptical about Mu Yan's medical skills. This time, he stayed to see if Mu Yan had a way to cure Situ Tinji. No, it was impossible to cure Situ Tinji. Zhang Heng also had a rough medical skill. On the way here, he also checked Situ Tinji's pulse. He found that this young patriarch of the Situ family was already terminally ill, and no medicine could cure him. No matter what the cause of his previous illness was. Now, he would not live for more than 3 days. But even if she couldn't cure him, He could see from Miss June's treatment method whether her medical skills were as brilliant as her son said. Beside the bed, Mu Yen clasped Situ Tingy's wrist and slowly released her divine sense. After a moment, she opened her eyes and frowned slightly. Dr. June, how is our patriarch? Can he still be saved? Mu Yen raised her head and met Ing Mei's worried gaze. Her lips curled up, revealing a shallow smile. Of course, he can be saved. But I'm very curious. His dantian and meridians were originally weaker than ordinary people. Coupled with excessive cultivation, the fire poison entered his body and weakened his body. How did the previous quack treat him? Not only did they not find a way to heal his meridians, they even used an addictive paralysis drug to make him feel no pain. This anesthetic could make people feel as if there was no pain in their body. But in fact, the damage of the dantian and meridians was getting more and more serious. The vitality of the human body would be nibbled away bit by bit. A person's vitality would also be nibbled away bit by bit. Once the medicine was cut off, the pain in the meridians and dantian would increase by hundreds and thousands of times, making it unbearable. Hearing Mu Yan's words, even though Xu Jian and Xu Mo were already mentally prepared, they were still shocked and furious. Wen Jiyan, this Wen Jiyan has such a vicious heart. Our Situ clan has no enmity with him. In order to cure his illness, we even gave him our crystal stone mine. Why does he want to harm our clan leader? On the contrary, Situ Tingy, who was lying on the bed, had an indifferent expression. He sneered, I know why he is like this. Why? Situ Tingy did not reply. Instead, he said in a low voice, Tingy knows that my illness is beyond cure and that I will not live for long. But to be able to see you before I die. I have no regrets in this life. Chapter 33-26. Ing Mei's hands suddenly clench. Situ Tingy doesn't look at her, but looks at Mu Yen instead. Dr. June, thank you for your comfort and answer, but I know my condition. It's already thanks to Dr. June's miraculous medicine that I'm clear-headed at this moment. Cough, cough, the rest is just life and death, there's no need to force it. Master, hoo. Master, if you leave, what will happen to the Situ family? Xu Jian and Xu Mo are sobbing, their eyes already filled with despair. Mu Yen hasn't spoken yet, but Xiao Bao says unhappily with a straight face, my Nyangqin said that she can be saved, so why are you crying? Xu Jian and Xu Mo's cries stop. Situ Tingy also looks over in astonishment. He sees that not only is there no doubt or guilt on that jade-carved baby's face, even Ing Mei looks calm. Even Ing Mei's expression was calm. There was nervousness and excitement in her eyes, but there was no fear or despair. Situ Tingy's breathing suddenly becomes disorderly. Could it be that this beautiful young girl is really a genius doctor who can cure him? Could it be that he can really live? Mu Yan takes out the Tian Mo Qin, and her slender jade-like fingertips gently pluck the strings. Beautiful music fills the ears, accompanied by vigorous energy that overflows from the Qin, and threads of it invade Situ Tingy's body. The following treatment process will be a bit painful. Master Situ, you have to endure it. Music doctor. It's actually a rare music doctor on the floating island. This thought flashes through Situ Tingy's mind, and all his consciousness is immediately swallowed up by the piercing pain. Heng is also very shocked. He really didn't expect that the girl in front of him, who looks to be in her early 20s, would actually be a music doctor. A music doctor doesn't just have superb medical skills. It also needs a strong cultivation and vigorous spiritual power to supplement it. However, how could Heng know that the truly shocking scene has yet to come? The sound of the qin comes to an abrupt end. The art of Qi Huang has already been launched. Mu Yan's hands are folded together, and then slowly separate. Almost transparent threads and needles appear at her fingertips. The blade cuts through Situ Tinji's body, exposing his internal organs. The edge of the blade is level, and not a single drop of blood flows. Situ Tinji's forehead was dripping with beads of sweat. Shu Jian and Shu Mo were both shocked and horrified. This was disemboweling. How was this woman trying to save their patriarch? She was clearly trying to kill their patriarch. The two of them were about to rush forward recklessly. Ingmei unsheathed her sword halfway and coldly blocked in front of them. A powerful pressure spread out, causing the two of them to feel as if their strength had been sucked out. They were unable to move at all. Shu Jian and Shu Mo were about to go crazy from anxiety. Let go of me. What are you going to do to the patriarch? Ingmei looked at the two of them coldly and immediately sealed their mouths. Time passed slowly. The expressions on the faces of everyone in the room ranged from anger, anxiety, shock, and finally admiration. This series of emotional changes lasted for more than 2 hours. However, no one felt that time was passing slowly. They only hated the fact that they did not have a photographic talisman or a mirage light stone on hand to record the dreamlike healing scene in front of them. Was there really such a miraculous medical skill in this world? A person who was obviously terminally ill, could he really be saved? Situ Tinji, whose wounds were all stitched up, and spiritual power began to circulate within his body, gave them the answer. Chapter 33-27. Moss. Master, your cultivation base has returned. Master, you've really recovered. Boo-hoo. Shu Jian and Shu Mo hugged Situ Tinji, crying and laughing. Then they knelt before Mu Yan and kowtowed heavily. Dr. Jun, my Situ family will never forget your life-saving grace. The one who knelt after Shu Jian and Shu Mo was not Situ Tinji, who staggered to get up. It was Heng. At this time, his face was flushed with excitement. The light in his eyes was excited and expectant. He stared straight at Mu Yan and said eagerly, Dr. Jun, please come with me to the Sacred Heaven Alliance to treat our leader. Mu Yan was also afraid that a long delay would bring trouble. She planned to finish refining her natal sword as soon as possible and return to Carefree City. So she nodded. But when Ingmei was about to follow, she glanced at Situ Tinji and chuckled, Ingmei, you stay here. But I have to protect Miss and the little master. However, when she saw Di Mingju holding Mu Yan, she immediately silenced her words. With Jun Shang here, who in this world could hurt the master? She was really confused. After Mu Yan and the others left, Situ Tinji sent Shu Jian and Shu Mo away. Only Ingmei and Situ Tinji were left in the room. The two quietly looked at each other. After a long time, Situ Tinji's eyes reddened first and he softly called out a name, Little Ing. His voice was hoarse and trembling, as if what was before him was a dream. As if the dream would be shattered if he was a little rude. Little Ing, is it really you? Are you really still alive? Ingmei's whole body trembled, and her feet unconsciously walked towards Situ Tinji step by step. Finally, she staggered and knelt in front of him. Big brother, is it really you? Are you really still alive? Both of them asked the same question. After asking, there was a sad and loving silence. After a long time, Ingmei's tears couldn't stop sliding down her eyes. Situ Tinji also seemed to be unable to bear it any longer. He hugged her and burst into tears. At that time, I secretly returned to the Shi family, but our home was already a piece of scorched earth, and no one survived. I thought little Ing, you and father and mother had already. Ingmei tightly hugged the lost and recovered relatives, crying silently and trembling. wasn't she the same? She thought that her father, mother, and brother had all died in that sea of fire, but it turned out that her brother was still alive. Still alive. She was not alone. Situ-Tinji calmed down, then grabbed her hand and anxiously said, "Ingr, how did you escape that year? Where have you been all these years? Also, did you have anything to do with the destruction of the Heavenly Palace?" Ingmei nodded. Recalling the scenes from back then, tears welled up in her eyes. Back then, father, mother, and I were trapped in the sea of fire. It was father who sacrificed his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls and activated the restrictive formation to send me out of the Shur clan. When I woke up, I was already in the Shushin continent. It was Lord who saved me, gave me a place to settle down, taught me cultivation, and let me take charge of the Xian department. When it comes to Di Mingju, Ingmei's eyes are filled with gratitude and reverence. At first, Situ-Tinji didn't understand who this Jun Shang she was talking about was. When he understood what was going on, he was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair. Ingmei hurriedly supported him. You're saying that the handsome and noble young master, that Dr. Jun's husband, is the only immortal emperor in the Shushin continent. The supreme king of the polar domain. Situ-Tinji simply didn't know whether he should be glad that his little sister was still alive, or shocked that his family was unexpectedly saved by such a great character. Chapter 33-28. Ingmei smiles and is about to speak. Suddenly, little shadow, you've gone too far, actually abandoning me and Jun Shang to come to Mount Lingmiao. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? Han Ye's loud voice rushes into the room, accompanied by the banging sound of the door being knocked open. However, when he sees the scene inside the room, Han Ye's voice comes to an abrupt halt, his eyes widening little by little as he glares at the 2 people hugging each other. Ingmei suddenly comes back to her senses, promptly wiping away her tears and standing up. Han Ye, why are you? Before she could finish speaking, Han Ye has already bellowed, rushing over regardless. Bastard, you dare to take advantage of little shadow, Lousy will kill you. Han Ye, stop. Bang! Having just undergone treatment, Situ-Tinji's body is still abnormally weak. Without any power to resist, he is sent flying out, heavily crashing into his master. Blood overflows from the corners of his mouth. Ingmei only feels a buzzing sound in her head, almost unable to think. Han Ye has already rushed forward once again. Jealousy and anger make his eyes redden. His originally not-so-stupid brain seems to have lost the ability to think at this moment. He just wants to dismember this man who hugs Ingmei into 1,000 pieces. However, his second punch doesn't fall on Situ-Tinji's body. Instead, it's met with a whistling and swift sword chi. Han Ye is caught off guard, and the sword chi hits him head-on. Although this sword chi doesn't have any lethality, it only wants to stop his movements and force him back. But at this very moment, Han Ye is already unable to think. His eyes are crimson as he glares at Ingmei. Gritting his teeth, he hisses, "Ingmei, you're going to attack me for another man." Ingmei withdraws her sword, a trace of panic in her eyes. But she has always been cold, and she doesn't like to explain no matter what she does. So after opening and closing her mouth for a long time, she only spits out a few words, "No, another man. Not another man." So to say, this man is very important to her. More important than himself. So in order to protect him, she's willing to attack him. Han Ye only feels that his heart is tightly clutched, making him almost unable to breathe. Ingmei sees his suddenly deathly pale complexion, and her mind is thrown into chaos. She promptly says, "Han Ye, he's my... So, is this why you've been avoiding me and distancing yourself from me all this time?" Han Ye unexpectedly lowly laughs, but his smile is even more heart-wrenching than if he were to cry. I understand now. Everything was just my wishful thinking. Mei, you should've told me earlier. That way, I wouldn't have sunk deeper and deeper, to the point where I'm unable to extricate myself and doomed eternally. Han Yi abruptly closes his eyes, hiding away the distress and pain in his eyes. Han Yi, Before Mei could finish her sentence, the man in front of her had already disappeared. In that instant, Mei felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. Even his heart felt empty, as if he had lost the most important thing in the world. She stood there in a daze, forgetting to breathe and even forgetting everything around her. Until Situ Tinji's hand gently pressed down on her shoulder, his low and hoarse voice softly said, Is that the man you like? He seemed to have misunderstood something. Do you want Gidge to explain it to him? Mei blankly stayed silent for a long time, before she says in a nearly deathly still tone. Chapter 33-29. No need, he's just my partner. What does it matter if it's a misunderstanding or not? I've already decided to live as the leader of the Xian division, Mei, for the rest of my life, to be loyal to Junshang and Mississippi. For a monster that's neither male nor female like me, talking about love is nothing more than a luxury. Isn't it better to cut it off cleanly like this, once and for all? If it doesn't matter, why are you crying? Situ Tinji's voice is helpless and pitiful. Mei reacts at this time, reaching out her hand to wipe her face. It's cold and damp to the touch. She's crying. Why didn't she feel anything just now? No bitterness, no sadness, no grievance, only empty numbness and coldness. From now on, no one will ignore his cold face and chase after her, calling her little shadow. From now on, no one will risk their life to save her. From now on, no one will be like that fool called Han Yi, who will love her wholeheartedly. Go. Mei raises her head to look at Situ Tinji, hoarsely saying, I don't want to cry, but I can't stop the tears. Silly girl. Situ Tinji holds her in his arms, sighing, You've always liked to put on a brave front since you were a child, always wanting to shoulder everything on your shoulders. So many years have passed, why haven't you changed at all? Mei wipes away her tears, pulling out a smile. Miss said that your medicine needs to be decocted, I'll go take a look. He looks at Mei, who has already completely recovered her cold expression. Then he looks at her attire and temperament, which are no different from a man's. Situ Tinji's brows slightly wrinkle. It's only at this moment that he realizes that even if they're both stubborn, the cold youngster before him is already completely different from his younger sister. He presses down on Mei's shoulder, saying in a low voice, What happened back then? Tell Big Brother in detail, okay? What happened back then? Hearing this question, Mei is distracted for a moment. That was something that happened more than 20 years ago. Even for a cultivator, it's been a long time. So long that she's almost forgotten that nightmarish night. At that time, the Lan family empire hadn't yet fallen into chaos because of the beast god's soul pearl. The power structure of one country, 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects on the floating island was more stable than it was today, but the members were slightly different. Of the 8 sects, there was a sect that no longer existed, the Skyline Palace. Of the 6 families, there was also one that did not have it now, but was ranked last in the past, the Shi family. The Shi family was an expert in formations, and the family head, Shi Huainan, was one of the best formation masters on the floating island at that time. However, Shi Huainan's 2 sons, Shi Yi and Shi Qi, did not have the slightest bit of talent in formations. In particular, Shi Yi had been weak and sickly since he was a child. Not to mention refining formations, even his cultivation was several times more difficult than others. Because there was no successor, the Shur family declined little by little, and they were even about to be kicked out of the 6 great families. It was also at this time that the third daughter of the Shur family, Shuring, was born. Shur Huainan had never seen anyone as talented as Shuring in battle. Whether it was his sword techniques, formations, or cultivation speed, Shuring had far surpassed his peers. However, when she was young, Shuring would always see Shur Huainan sighing softly at her. With such talent, why not give it to Shur Yi and Shur Qi? If only it was a boy. Chapter 33:30. Little Shuring gripped the long sword in his hand tightly, gritted his teeth, and trained even harder than before. One day, she would let her father know. Boys and girls were the same. She, Shuring, might be a girl, but she was no worse than a man. As expected, as time passed, Shuring grew stronger and stronger. She even defeated a genius from the Sky Air Palace in a competition held by the Lan family empire and was personally rewarded by His Majesty. Now that your cultivation has reached the Earth creation realm, it's time for me to hand over the 7 deadly starlight formations formation disc to you. Looking at the inconspicuous formation disc in her hands, Shuring was excited. In reality, she didn't like to forge formations. She preferred to use it to defeat her enemies and make a name for herself. But her father had given her the 7 deadly starlight formation as a recognition of her strength. This made Shuring happier than anything else. However, on the night that Shur Huainan handed the formation to Mei, the Sky Air Palace mobilized all their forces to surround the Shur clan. The Shur clan didn't have much fighting power. They were only able to survive until now because of their powerful formations. However, the Sky Air Palace had bribed the Shur clan's servants to destroy the Shur clan's protective formation. Their goal was the 7 deadly starlight formation. But even if they wanted the formation disc, they still wanted the Shur clan's wealth, territory, and everyone's lives. Raging flames ignited in every corner of the Shur clan. Shuring didn't even have time to find her mother and brother before she was dragged into a secret chamber by the heavily injured Shur Huainan. Outside, there was a monstrous disaster and an inescapable net with nowhere to run. Smoke billowed in the secret chamber. Spiritual energy and air grew thinner and thinner. This was a sign that the 3 of them had reached the end of their lives. Shur Huainan held a red formation disc in his hand, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. What he was holding in his hand was not so much an array disc, but a curse insect. By sacrificing one's soul and life, it could send a person away from despair. Shuring said without hesitation, "Father, why don't we send Shur Qi away? Let him live on and continue the Shur clan's lineage. I'll stay with you." When the Sky Air Palace arrived, her mother and brother were in the outer court. The outer court was already a sea of fire. There were no survivors. Her brother and mother were already dead. Thinking of this, Shur Ying's tears fell uncontrollably. And she was just a girl. According to his father, there was no way to continue the bloodline of the Shur clan. Only his second brother, Shur Qi, was left. As long as his second brother was still alive, the Shur family would not be considered extinct. Curse Gu activated the teleportation array. The blood-red light was even more dazzling than the fire outside, and it enveloped everyone in the room. Shur Huainan's face instantly aged, and his body slowly went limp as his eyes lost focus. Shuring turned to look at Shur Qi. Second brother, quickly, however, before she could finish her sentence, she was pushed into the red light by a palm. Second brother. Shuring let out a heart-wrenching scream and wanted to rush out. However, the red light enveloped her and shackled her. Amidst the dazzling redness, she saw her second brother, Shi, giving her a doting smile. "You are my little sister. How can a brother not protect his sister?" The light in Shi Huainan's eyes had not completely disappeared. He looked up and saw Shirring in the teleportation array. However, he didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he revealed a gratified expression and muttered, live on. No matter what, you have to live on." Chapter 33-31. No. Father. Second brother. The last thing Shirring saw was the fire engulfing everything she loved and was familiar with. When he opened his eyes again, the world had changed, and they were separated by two different worlds. Shirring wrapped her chest with a cloth and tied up her long hair with a simple wooden hairpin. She used a fierce killing intent to cover up her daughter's gentleness. She knelt in front of the man she swore loyalty to. "Thank you, Lord, for allowing me to return to the floating island to take revenge. From now on, there will be no more Shirring in this world, only Ying Mei, who will be loyal to you for life." Yes, from now on, she was no longer Shirring, but the leader of the Xian division, Ying Mei. She wasn't a man, so she couldn't continue the bloodline of the Shi family. But at least she could choose to repay Lord's kindness. Perhaps her father's spirit in heaven would be happy to know that she was going to live on as a man. Nonsense. After listening to Ying Mei's calm narration, Situ Tinji shouted and raised his hand. But the slap didn't go down. In addition to anger, there was more heartache, pity, and regret. When the Skyline Palace suddenly surrounded the Shi family, her mother did almost the same thing as her father. She tricked Shi into taking a pill to fake his death and buried him in the flower bed in the backyard. Then she sacrificed herself to distract the Skyline Palace's troops. The pill only had a time limit of 7 days. Within 7 days, the person who took it would be like a real corpse. No matter how powerful a magic treasure was, it couldn't detect it. But once 7 days passed, the person who took the pill would still be unable to move, and their internal organs and meridians would be damaged bit by bit. Deep in the soil, they couldn't breathe or absorb spiritual energy. If no one came to save him, Shi would suffocate to death underground. Fortunately, 7 days later, Shi's uncle, a member of the Situ clan, saw many extinguished soul lamps coming to their door. In the end, at the critical moment, he dug out Shi, who was on the verge of death, from the ground. From then on, Shi changed his name to Situ Tinji and survived. In the following years, he never forgot his parents' tragic death and the hatred of the Shi family's extermination. Originally not good at cultivation, he forced himself to cultivate day and night, even at the cost of his lifespan. At the same time, the Situ clan, which was originally a third-rate sect, gradually became more and more prosperous under his management. But just as Situ Tinji felt that he had the qualifications to take revenge on the Sky Air Palace, he received news that the Sky Air Palace had been utterly destroyed. At that time, how could Situ Tinji have thought of this? The one who destroyed the Heavenly Palace was actually his little sister, who had just barely escaped death. And what exactly had his sister shouldered all these years for the sake of revenge and the destruction of the Shi family? The hand that was swung down touched Ying Mei's cheek. Situ Tinji's voice was gentle, but the tears in her eyes almost fell. Do you still not understand? Father and Shi let you enter the teleportation array because they want you to live well and not carry guilt and torment for the rest of your life. Just like how his mother had resolutely left the hope of life to him. In the end, she still couldn't hold back her tears. Have you always felt that father was too harsh on you, that he valued boys over girls and hoped that you would be a son so that you could inherit the Shi family's lineage and continue the family line? Ying Mei looked up at her brother. Isn't it? Of course not. Situ Tinji sighed softly. The Sure family's array, especially the 7-killing Starlight array, that has been passed down for generations, increases yang energy and damages yin energy. Chapter 33-32. Men won't be harmed if they practice it, but women who practice it may ruin their appearance and speed up their aging. Father knows you're strong, but he's also a father, and he doesn't want to see his only daughter work so hard. He wants our little her to be happy, grow up unfettered, find the man she loves, get married and have children, and live a peaceful and carefree life. But our little is so outstanding, which makes us worry and proud. Father has always been proud of you. Mei looked at her brother in a daze, tears unknowingly falling from her eyes. Is it true? Father doesn't dislike her for being a woman. He doesn't blame her for not being able to inherit the Sure family's bloodline. Father has always been proud of her. Tears fell down like a broken dam, but she held them back with all her might. Situ Tinji glanced at the empty doorway and said softly, "The nightmare from 20 years ago is over. You've gotten your revenge and become so outstanding. From now on, don't carry such a heavy burden on your shoulders, okay? Even if the Sure family needs a son to carry on the family line, there's still Big Brother. Little it's time to put down the burden on your shoulders and pursue the happiness that belongs to you. If you miss the man you love, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Mei listened blankly, then suddenly gritted her teeth and disappeared. Situ Tinji was startled, but when he realized that his sister's cultivation had reached such a high level, he couldn't help but smile proudly. "Father, mother, second brother, did you see that? This is our little she has become so powerful. And she will be very happy, very happy. The Sure family will not be destroyed, little and I will carry your hopes and live on." Mount Lingmiao, Drunken Firmament Building. The sound of stringed instruments, accompanied by a suffocating fragrance of cosmetics, drifted out from the inside in wisps. This was the largest brothel in Mount Lingmiao. It was also the most lively and ecstatic place every day. At this time, in the most luxurious room of Drunken Firmament Building, several enchanting and charming women were surrounding a man at the table in the middle, trying to please him. "Sir, since you've come to our Drunken Firmament Building, are you here to enjoy yourself? How can you just drink?" "Hee, if I want to drink wine, that's fine too. I can feed you with my mouth." With a cold face, Han Yi drains the wine in the pot in one gulp. Feeling the fragrant body next to him, he felt nauseous and suddenly pushed her down. "Ouch! Sir, why are you so rude?" The woman who was pushed over cried out in pain. But he didn't give up, and continued to come closer. "Sir, you came to our Drunken Firmament Building alone to drink to drown your sorrows. Is there something sad on your mind? Could it be that you were hurt by some vixen?" It's just a woman." Our Drunken Firmament Building has many things to do, so why does Sir want to hang yourself on a single tree? We guarantee that as long as you have a taste of us sisters, you will definitely forget about those wild vixens. Bang! The door was smashed open. Or rather, he was directly trampled into a pulp. Han Yi, who's impatiently drinking, suddenly lifts his head. His eyes brighten when he sees the person approaching, and he wants to stand up. However, he thought of something. He clenched his teeth, sat back down, and drank the wine in the pot in one gulp. Chapter 33-33. Han Yi even reaches out to pull the woman sitting next to him into his arms. The corners of his mouth rise in a provocative smile, and he looks at the person. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's Mei. Before, when I invited you to the brothel, you always used all sorts of excuses. What, now you want to have a taste of this ecstasy? The woman sitting next to him is startled at first, then she immediately shows a flattering smile. Her soft, boneless hand picks up the wine glass in front of her, and brings it to Han Ye's lips. Come, this servant will feed you. Han Ye's gaze falls on Ing Mei without blinking. Even though the scent of the woman coming closer makes him nauseous, he still makes a look of enjoyment, and leans over to drink the wine in the glass in one gulp. However, before his lips could touch the glass, the woman's wrist is already firmly gripped. Ouch, it hurts. The courtesan is in so much pain that her tears almost fall out. But with good professionalism, she still shows a fawning smile to Ing Mei. How can this ye be so rude? Could it be that you're not satisfied with our sister's service? Ing Mei exerts force on the woman's wrist. The courtesan screams, and the wine glass falls to the ground, falling into Ing Mei's palm. Ing Mei raises the glass and drinks it without hesitation. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, she sits down on the left side of Han Yi with a golden knife. Her sharp gaze sweeps over, and her cold voice carries a bit of chilliness. What are you standing there for? Still not going to serve me wine? For the past 20 years, Ing Mei has always been dressed as a man, and she's also the leader of the Xian department. That kind of resolute and fierce pressure is deeply engraved in her bones. Therefore, even if she has a handsome appearance, and looks like a good woman, no one would think that she's a woman. They only feel that this is a handsome young man that can make people's hearts thump uncontrollably. The courtesan girls look at each other in dismay. Just a moment ago, they were still a bit afraid of Ing Mei's coldness, but right now, they can't help but be happy, their cheeks blushing. Oh my! Today, these two guests are really more handsome than the other. Serving such a handsome man was much better than serving those ugly, fat people. Moreover, looking at these two people's imposing manner and the magic weapons on their waists, one can tell that they have an extraordinary background and are extravagant. If he served her well, he might be able to achieve meteoric success. The woman, whose wrist had been grabbed by Ing Mei and who had screamed miserably, now had a bright smile on her face. She pulled her clothes down again. She stroked her hair with her fingers and sat beside Ing Mei with a sweet smile. While pouring wine for Ing Mei, she rubbed her body against Ing Mei's elbow and said, "Dear guest, my name is Xiang Yun. I admire a handsome young man like you the most. How about I serve you today?" Ing Mei glanced at her, the corner of her mouth hooked up, revealing a faint smile. Sure. The youth's smile instantly diluted the hostility and coldness between her brows. Her red lips and white teeth made her look even more romantic and charming, causing one's heart to shake uncontrollably. Xiang Yun's face turned even redder. Her eyes were like silk, and she couldn't help but press her hands on the back of Ing Mei's hands. She timidly said, "Lang Jun is so naughty. Just now, you used so much force that it scared me. If you don't believe me, you can touch it. My little heart is still pounding right now." After saying that, she grabbed Ing Mei's hands and put them on her body. Bang! With a loud noise, the whole table was suddenly overturned. The exquisite dishes and wine on the table spilled all over the floor. Chapter 33-34. The courtesans of Zui Xiaolu are scared silly, each and every one of them blankly stare at the ashen-faced youth. Han Yi steps forward in large strides, ruthlessly flinging away the fragrant cloud that stuck to Ing Mei's body. "Get lost. Dear customer, what's wrong with you? I told you to get out, did you hear me?" A bone-chilling killing intent abruptly spreads out, and each and every one of these courtesans are scared witless. In just a moment, they've already escaped without a trace. The only one who's as calm as before is Ing Mei. She puts down the wine glass and slowly stands up, about to walk out. But before she could take 2 steps, her wrist is gripped, and she's firmly pulled back. Where do you think you're going? The 5 fingers that are gripping her wrist tighter and tighter, almost making a crackling sound from the bones. But to May, it's as if she doesn't feel this pain at all. She calmly looks at the man in front of her, indifferently saying, "Didn't you tell me to get lost?" Ye's expression stagnates. The 5 fingers that are gripping her wrist also slightly loosen. But in just a split second, his complexion sinks, his expression becoming even more distorted. "Have you been wanting to leave me for a long time? In your heart, it's always been me who disliked me, isn't it? From the very beginning when we entered the polar domain, you've been ignoring me. I've been shamelessly following behind you, wishfully treating you as a friend." Later on, when he found out that May is a woman, his heart sank without any resistance. From then on, there's only the shadow of this cold youngster in his mind and eyes. In the middle of the night, he dreams of imprisoning her in his arms forever, making her unable to escape. But Yi is so afraid. He's afraid that May's smile and kindness towards him is just gratitude for his life-saving grace, just a superficial courtesy. Yi reveals a distressed smile, slowly loosening his grip on May's wrist. "I should have known that you wouldn't say it on the surface, but in your heart, you must be sick of me, now that you've met the man you like." When he says the last few words, Ye's voice is hoarse and astringent, almost unable to continue. "You can finally justifiably leave." His astringent voice doesn't continue, disappearing under the soft touch of her lips. Yi stares blankly at those clear and elegant brows that are within reach. Her long eyelashes droop down, covering her clear eyes that were as black as ink. The teenager's expression was calm, but the hand that grabbed his collar was trembling slightly. Her long and thick eyelashes trembled slightly. It was evident that she was panicking and nervous at this moment. Yi blankly stares at this scene, smelling the familiar scent that fills the tip of his nose. For a moment, he was unable to react to what had happened. May was kissing him. May was kissing her. Yi suddenly quivers from head to toe, all the hair on his body almost standing on end. He opened his mouth, not knowing what he wanted to say or do. The hand on his collar had already loosened. Then, the familiar aura and soft touch left him. Yi feels a sense of loss in his heart. Seeing that May, whose ears are slightly red, is about to leave, Yi almost instinctively reaches out to pull her into his arms, firmly imprisoning her. However, what should he do after he was imprisoned? Yi blankly licks his lips. After a long while, he finally stutters and says cautiously, "May, you just kissed me." The youngster in his arms unnaturally shifts his body. In the end, he lowers his brows and softly utters an N. Chapter 33-35. Why did you kiss me? Don't you hate me? May rolls her eyes at him, "Idiot." Saying that, she pushes him away and turns to leave. Yi suddenly sobers up, tightly clenching his hands and shouting, "You're not allowed to go." May casts him a sidelong glance, "Are you ordering me?" Ye's eyes are flustered, his face flushed, but he refuses to let go no matter what. After a long time, he squeezes out, You kissed me, so you have to take responsibility." May is amused by him. "I have to take responsibility for a kiss?" Yi nods again and again. May slightly lowers her eyes, suddenly grabs his lapel and gently pushes him down on the bed. She kisses him once again. A low, hoarse voice vaguely sounds, "What about now? How do I take responsibility?" Ye's eyes are once again dyed crimson. But it's different from the previous resentment and jealousy. This time, he breathes heavily, unable to bear it any longer. He turns over and reverses their positions. Ingmei, don't torture me anymore. I want to think that I'm in love again and again. If you don't like me, Ingmei narrows her eyes. What about you? Loitering around the brothel every day, looking for girls to accompany you. Meeting those cold and beautiful eyes filled with murderous intent, Han Yi is instantly terrified. I didn't. I just want to annoy you, those girls, I didn't even touch a finger. Ingmei, I've only liked you, one girl, you have to believe me. Ingmei's mouth hooks up, but she immediately presses it down, whispering, but I'm not a woman. Even if I'm willing to restore your identity as a woman, I can't learn those womanly charms again. I can't abandon the Xian department and be your wife with peace of mind. I might not even be able to bear children for you. Ingmei says a bunch of things, but finds that the man who is looking down at her has a blank expression, as if he's stupid. Her heart aches, and she wants to push him away. But she hears Han Yi suddenly stuttering, "Little shadow, what did you just say? You said that you're willing to restore my identity as a woman, what do you mean by that?" The pain in her heart is like being gently scratched by a feather, disappearing without a trace in a flash. Ingmei looked at the silly look of the man in front of her, and her heart was filled with unprecedented peace and sweetness. Han Yi grabs her hand, impatiently wanting to ask for a statement, but because he's too nervous, he's timid. Ingmei, does this mean that you also like me a little? Ingmei sighed and muttered silently, not just a little, but a lot. However, Han Yi doesn't hear these words. Seeing that Ingmei was about to let go of his hand after he finished speaking, he got up. Han Yi doesn't know where his courage and strength comes from, but he clasps both of her hands and heavily pushes her back. Ingmei. Seeing that the man was so anxious that his eyes were about to turn red. The smile on Ingmei's face became more and more tender. However, she had always been cold and emotionless. Her 7 emotions and 6 desires would not show on her face. Therefore, in Han Ye's view, the youngster under him still has an indifferent expression, as if disdainful of his anxiety. However, just as Han Ye's heart sinks bit by bit, thinking that he's once again being delusional, he hears Ingmei's cool and calm voice, with a slight hoarseness, "Idiot, if you still don't understand, then it's better for us to cook the uncooked rice right now." Raw, cook the uncooked rice. Chapter 33-36. Han Ye's body suddenly stiffens. His eyes stare at the face that he yearns for day and night, completely stupefied. By the time he reacts to what Ingmei said, his whole body turns red like a shrimp, hot air spurting out of his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Ingmei, do you know what cooked rice means? You don't talk nonsense. Nonsense. You have to take responsibility for a kiss. After cooked rice, you will completely belong to me. How is that nonsense? Ingmei raises her eyebrows, but if you don't want to, then forget it. Saying that, she pushes him away and gets up. At this moment, Han Yi, whose brain had just stopped working, finally comes back to his senses. He doesn't even think about it and pulls her into his arms. Cook. Must cook. Today, we'll cook the rice. Outside the largest private room on the 2nd floor of Drunken Heaven restaurant. From time to time, brightly dressed prostitutes stick their heads out to look inside. It's already been one night, those 2 gongzi still haven't come out. Bah. Bad luck, I thought that we could properly serve the 2 best officials who came last night. I didn't expect that the 2 of them would actually have that kind of relationship. What's wrong with that kind of relationship? Xiang Yun puts her hands on her hips, unconvinced, these two Gongzi are a perfect match, a match made in heaven and earth. They're much better than those stinky men who look at women with lustful eyes. Hee, guess which one of them is on top, and which one is below. Boo-hoo-hoo, this servant really wants to go in and take a look. Just as she says that, the door to the room suddenly opens without warning. A handsome young man, dressed in black, tight-fitting embroidered clothes, comes out from inside, his face expressionless. Seeing the crowd gathered outside, his expression doesn't change, and he directly throws a crystal to Xiang Yun. Xiang Yun catches the crystal in a flurry, her heart delighted. Most of the prostitutes in Drunken Heaven restaurant are only low-level mortal cultivators. In the past, most of the guests who come here were given low-grade crystals. But this crystal in her hand, even if she doesn't probe it, she can feel the richness of its spiritual power. This is definitely a high-grade crystal. Just as this thought crossed her mind, Fragrant Cloud looked down at the crystal in her hand, and her eyes widened. She cried out, "Obsidian crystal." She was so frightened that she almost threw away the crystal in her hand. He looked at Ing Mei in panic. "Sir, you must have made a mistake, this is obsidian crystal." Just as Ing Mei was about to speak, another crystal was tossed into Xiang Yun's hand. The young man's giggling voice could be heard. "That's right, I'm in a good mood today, how about I reward you with another piece of obsidian crystal?" These obsidian crystals were all confiscated from the Clear Skies sect by Han Yi. Most of them stayed in Liberty City. But because he had to travel a long distance to find Ing Mei, he couldn't bring anything from the Shushan continent to the lower realm, except for those special materials. Therefore, Han Yi hides a few pieces of obsidian crystals as travel expenses on the road. Ing Mei gives him a sidelong glance, and says with a smile that isn't a smile, "Is Han Yi Gongzi very extravagant? Seems like you can handle these places with ease." Han Yi wraps his arm around Ing Mei's waist, laughing awkwardly. "How could I? I'm just a woman who follows her husband's tune, that's all." Ing Mei's face couldn't help but break into laughter. Silly. She very rarely shows such a brilliant smile. For a moment, it's like the melting of ice and snow, and the blooming of 100 flowers. Han Yi is practically dumbfounded. There's something stirring inside him, but it's replaced by endless happiness and sweetness. Chapter 33-37. Little Shadow, I'm so happy. Disregarding the onlookers, Han Yi lowers his head and presses it against Ing Mei's, murmuring in a low voice, "I've never been so happy in my life." Ing Mei hooks up her lips. "I'm also very happy, from now on, you're mine." Han Yi nods without hesitation. "I'm yours in this life, my next life, and the life after that." The two of them leave intimately. The people of Drunken Heaven building look at the obsidian crystal in Xiang Yun's hand, then at the suddenly disappearing figure on the walkway. For a moment, they're all stunned. After a long while, someone murmurs, "I thought that cold youngster was down there, but it turns out, in front of Wan Yanan's stone house." She sees Situ Tinji sunbathing in front of the stone house, being served by Shu Jian and Shu Mo. The smile on Han Ye's face disappears without a trace. He firmly grabs Ing Mei's hand, his face full of jealousy and possessiveness. But the words that come out are still soft and flattering. "Little Shadow, what are we doing in this damned place? Where's Jun Shang and Miss? They don't seem to be here, let's go find them, okay?" Ing Mei looks at him in amusement, grabbing him with a backhand. "I'm going to take you to see someone." Han Yi is unwillingly dragged away by her, muttering indignantly as he walks, "Little Shadow, what's so good about that sickly man? He can't lift his hands or carry his shoulders, how can he take care of you? Moreover, this kind of hypocrite is the best at putting on an act, but he's actually very hypocritical on the inside." Don't be fooled by them. As they were talking, the two have already arrived in front of Situ Tinji. Han Ye's last words aren't hushed at all, so it reaches Situ Tinji's and Shu Jian's ears as expected. Shu Jian and Shu Mo's complexion becomes very unsightly in a split second. They fiercely glare at Han Ye, angrily saying, "Who are you calling a hypocrite?" "He, whoever puts on an act is a hypocrite." Situ Tinji stops Shu Jian and Shu Mo's outburst, chuckling as he looks at Han Ye. "You're saying I'm a hypocrite, isn't it?" Han Ye sneers, narrowing his eyes, suddenly releasing a strong pressure. "You've just met a person, acting as if you're concerned, but you're actually taking advantage. If you are not a hypocrite, then you are a lecher." What is the level of Han Ye's cultivation? The heavenly Tao restriction on the floating island was not as strong as it was on the cultivation continent. Situ Tinji and Shu Jian's faces turned pale. "Paw!" Mei slaps Han Ye's head, dispersing that oppressive pressure in a split second. Han Ye is both shocked and angry, glaring at Mei in grievance. "Little shadow, you hit me for an outsider? What kind of person was he? We've only met a few times, and you're already protecting him like this." Han Ye is 100% sure that there's no such person as Situ Tinji at Mei's side. And with Situ Tinji's cultivation, he was clearly unable to ascend from the floating islands to the cultivation continent. Therefore, the two of them must have just met. Mei, such an indifferent person, is actually so affectionate towards a stranger he just met. This makes Han Ye go mad with jealousy. Situ Tinji looks up and down at Han Ye and Mei, whose expressions and movements are unconsciously affectionate. The smile at the corner of his mouth can't help but deepen. "This is the Han Ye you were talking about." Mei blushes inexplicably and embarrassedly. Remembering what Han Ye had just said, she can't help but forcefully explain, "He's usually not that stupid, it's just that there are times when he can't wrap his head around things. Don't lower yourself to his level." Chapter 33-38. Han Ye simply bursts with anger. "What do you mean he won't lower himself to my level?" However, Mei's next words make his roar come to an abrupt end, and his whole person freezes. "Go, he is the man I've decided on in this life, Han Ye. Go." Pinching the messenger crane, Mayan couldn't help but reveal a smile. It turns out that Situ Tinji is Mei's older brother. Meeting Situ Tinji this time is really a pleasant surprise. Now it seems that the knot in Mei's heart has finally been untied. She and Han Ye can finally be a family. On the side, Di Mingju is also holding a messenger crane in his hand, but he casually squeezes it. It turns into powder, and the fine pieces fall down. "Oh." Mayan looks strangely at the man next to her, who sent the crane. Han Ye. Mayan is even more curious. Han Ye. What message did he send? There's a moment of silence, and after a long time, she hears a low and indifferent voice. "He asked Ben Jun to approve his and Mei's marriage." Mayan happily says, TSK, it seems that the two of them are really developing at lightning speed. "Did you approve?" Di Mingju faintly looks at her, and unhurriedly says, "No." "What?" Mayan is shocked. "Why not?" Di Mingju grabs her soft boneless hand and gently squeezes it. His fingertips trace the lines on her palm, and he carelessly says, "Ben Jun hasn't gotten married yet, why should they get married?" Mayan. "Jun Shangdaran, can you be a little more narrow-minded?" Di Mingju leans down and sticks close to her ear, saying in a low voice, "Mayan, if you want them to get married as soon as possible, then promise to marry Ben Jun as soon as possible, and then personally preside over them." Mayan's heart trembles. She only feels like a kitten is gently scratching her letter, making her whole body go limp and numb. This is the man that she, June Mayan, has fallen in love with. Sometimes overbearing, sometimes narrow-minded, sometimes tsundere, and also easily jealous. But among the countless living beings in the world, in the vast sea of people, there's only this one that she can wholeheartedly love, wholeheartedly rely on. No matter how many difficulties and obstacles there are in the road ahead, as long as she knows that this person is waiting in front, she has nothing to fear. But, she wanted to get married as soon as possible. Mu Yan thought gloomily, but she hasn't found her biological father, Jun Shiyuan, and broken off the engagement. Even if she wants to get married, there's nothing she can do. Dr. Jun, are you ready? Heng's voice came from outside. We are going to the headquarters of the Sacred Heaven Alliance. After a few days of observation and selection, the Sacred Heaven Alliance chose 5 of the most skilled physicians from the invited physicians to treat Xiang Yunzhou. The remaining doctors gave them generous rewards and respectfully sent them off. Among these 5 people were He Kaizu, the traveling immortal doctor, Wen Jian, the first divine physician of the Lan royal family, Han Song, the beast soul doctor, Beitang Feilu, a female doctor from the Beitang branch who specialized in the way of witch medicine, and the last one, Jun Mayan, who was unknown but was fully recommended by Zhang Heng. Is this the headquarters of the Sacred Heaven Alliance? The moment they stepped into the magnificent building, they couldn't help but exclaim. Along the way, Mayan has seen a lot of strange things. Looking at the scene before him, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Was the headquarters of the Sacred Heaven Alliance luxurious and gorgeous? Magnificent and domineering? Exquisite and graceful? No, neither. He was just too special. Chapter 33-39. As soon as the 5 of them entered the hall, the ground under their feet split and spun. Before they could react, they were sent to their respective positions. A shiny silver ball floats in front of Mu Yan, letting out a childlike voice. Distinguished guest, please take a seat. Mu Yan can't help but use her divine sense to examine the ball. She found that it's not a living thing, but a Dharma treasure. And a Dharma treasure that doesn't have a spirit. But it clearly doesn't have a spirit, how can it speak? Mu Yan absent-mindedly sits down, and the silver ball immediately speaks again. Distinguished guest, would you like to enjoy some refreshments? Today's refreshments are snow lotus crisp, hibiscus cake, and fresh fish soup. Which would you like? Or perhaps this little one would like to bring you a portion of each. It can even serve refreshments. Mu Yan subconsciously replies, hibiscus cake. Very well, please wait a moment, distinguished guest. Mu Yan is thinking about how to serve the refreshments with this little bowl. A few tentacles stretch out from the silver ball and fly out. A moment later, a steaming hot and fragrant refreshments are brought to the table. Esteemed guest, please enjoy. Mu Yan's eyes shine brightly. What is this little thing? Isn't it too interesting? Damn, is this an AI? Baixia's excited and dreamy voice suddenly comes to her ears, so the cultivation world's refining methods can also refine AI? You must be joking. The little phoenix happily says, little brother, pretty sister, this is so fun, if only we could raise one in the space. Even Xiao Bao, who has always been precocious and has no interest in toys, also shows a curious expression in the space. Only Qi Huang disdainfully rolls his eyes. What kind of trash is this? This kind of inferior goods, they didn't even have the qualifications to serve this sage. Even if they were placed in the mining area to do repetitive work, I still despise them for being too slow, too stupid. What kind of eyes do you have? Even this kind of trash can enter your eyes. Mu Yan is surprised. Qi Huang, have you seen this kind of Dharma treasure before? Where did you see it? Chi Huang stares blankly, a bit of confusion appears on his face. His hands hanging by his side unconsciously clenches. That's right. He has seen this kind of Dharma treasure before. Seems like he has. But where had he seen it before? Chi Xiaohuang. Why do you care if I've seen him or not? Chi Huang abruptly comes back to his senses and says with a sour face, in short, as the master of the Tian Mo Qin, you're not allowed to make a fuss over nothing. Showing this kind of stupid look that hasn't seen the world, even if you don't find it embarrassing, this soon finds it embarrassing. Mu Yan rolls her eyes. TSK, how did she lose face? Other than Wen Jian, the other three were also shocked by the little thing in front of them. What's wrong with her making a fuss about nothing? Han Song and Beitang Feilu were even more excited as they circled around the little silver ball and shouted. She was already very calm, all right. 5 great doctors, welcome to the Sacred Heaven Alliance. A low and deep voice suddenly came from the upper left. Mu Yan raised his head to look and saw an old man leading 5 young men dressed in the same clothes walking over. Among the 5 young men, one of them was Zhang Heng, who had recommended Mu Yan. Seeing that he had attracted their attention, the elder smiled lightly and said, I am Wu Qin, the steward of the Sacred Heaven Alliance. It is our Sacred Heaven Alliance's honor to be able to invite all the doctors here to treat our Alliance Master. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.